For those who would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, let's do that now.
Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. Today is September 26th. The time is 7:03 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis is not.
be 5 minutes late.
Okay. Trustee Cranker.
Here.
Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Bierma. Here. Trustee George.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barty.
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here.
Alrighty, everybody in attendance except for Trustee Davis, who will be a little bit late.
Thank you. Do we have any revisions to this evening's agenda?
I do. I would like to pull agenda item 9B from the packet. This is the second reading for ordinance 2022-11, an ordinance revising municipal regulations concerning the lighting of Silverton. We have received public comments and staff would like to readdress this and look at it before we bring it back for another viewing.
Any objections? Great. Any others?
That's all.
Okay, great. Any trustee revisions to tonight's agenda? Okay. Now open the floor up for public comment. We'll start with in-person comment and then move to online comments. You can queue up online by clicking the raise hand button. If you're in person, please come up to the podium, sign in, introduce yourself, and then you'll have 3 minutes to address the community and the board and staff.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Lobato. I run the Harley store here in town. My comment this time is I really feel that we need to reintroduce the OHV issues that's going on in our town. Yes, we've had the ordinances. Running the business down there, I've gotten so many comments and they've been online and things that we're turning ourselves into an unfriendly town. People that don't even have OHVs, who know people that have OHVs. They say, don't even go there because they're not being friendly to the people that do. Granted, it's an ordinance and all that. They'll go to Ouray, they go to Great Lake City and all that. We can do it better. Telling them absolutely no is like telling all their friends, no, you're not welcome here either. And I've gotten lots and lots of comments about it. The other thing that I want to bring up is something else that might be looked at. The people that work here in town and live out there in the housing that's outside of town in the county. I've heard a lot of comments that they wish they were annexed because they live here, they work here, but they can't vote in our city goings on. And it's really unfair for them and us too. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other in-person comments? Okay, we'll move to our online members.
Hey, everybody, this is Melody. Can you hear me?
Cam.
The first thing I'd like to do is thank the town for trying so hard to follow the sunshine law. It's probably the biggest reason I stay engaged with the meetings is because it's very thorough as far as I can tell. And I want to bring up one subject, and that is that I intended to Zoom with the Planning Commission when JJ did the presentation of the new master plan. I couldn't find it anywhere online how to get in there. And I never did get to hear that meeting or make any comments. The county, if I were to give the town an A-, I'd give the county a D- for trying to meet the sunshine law. And what I'm suggesting on at least the Planning Commission, since they do your work as well, you can probably force them to do more and be better at the sunshine law. And I appreciate you listening to me. Thanks.
Thank you. It doesn't look like we have any other public comments at this time, so we'll go ahead and close this public comment period and begin the rest of our agenda, starting with presentations and proclamations. And I believe we have a Vero community broadband update.
Yes, so we have Gretchen Gary here, Marketing Development Manager for Vero. And she has a short update on their fiber build-up plan. Gretchen.
I'll try to keep this informal. First of all, thank you so much. It's been a great week in town and you'll be seeing lots of us around. So we came here in May. You can, oh, am I driving? Where am I?
You're good.
You driving? Yes. Okay. So next slide. Okay, so we came here in May. We promised we were going to build to 550 addresses. And we have about 107 current customers that will be migrating to fiber. We're a little bit behind target. I bring up the slide. We promised we'd be done by August. We'll be done by the end of
If I just interrupt for 1 second, are we screen sharing?
Fortunately, we cannot with this file format, so it will be available online and the link will be posted with tonight's meeting as well.
I normally don't read the slides. I can be a little bit more deliberate about reading the slides. I don't know how much time I have.
I was just thinking about our online participants and if
Definitely.
I wouldn't recommend reading the whole slide, but providing a little more context, knowing that they can't see that.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay. So we'll start a little bit over. Vero Networks bought Forethought and Brainstorm in January, and we promised a fiber build out finished by August. We're a little bit behind. We'll be finished by the end of October. And we will service 550 addresses and 107 existing customers. It's not quite at that slide, but we can move on. Pretty much said the same thing here. You can see on the map what we'll cover. We did say we were going to go on the existing poles, which we have done. We have connected to the existing cable that we already own to for aesthetics, etc. And we're almost finished. Next slide. The one that makes this one means something to me. So what we're offering is simple plans, $60, $80, and $100. The gigabits are 100, 500, and 1,000. I think the next part is most interesting is the FCC Affordable Connectivity Program. It's for lower income constituents, and I have a flyer here, and I think that might be important for this audience, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It basically gives $30 a month credit for families that qualify. And quite a few people qualify, I believe. Next slide. This is where we are now. So phase 1 is blue, and we're starting installs this week. Phase 2 is in yellow. I guess I'm going to call that, since there's not south side of town. Would you say that, or
My east.
Durango side of, okay, the east side of town. And then the green phase is the west side of town. Very short phases will all be done by the end of October, and we're taking orders now. Any questions on that? No? Okay. So basically we're finishing up drops. It's a 2-phase process. We finish to the poles, and then we do a drop to the house, and then we do the install. If you don't have dogs, the drop is easy. If you have dogs, we schedule the drop, and then we schedule the install. Pretty simple process. We're staying pretty local. You can call my cell phone number or Sean's cell phone number, and those will be listed on the website. Questions? Yeah.
I had a question about the credit. So will people enroll through you, or you point them to where they need to enroll? How does that work?
Good question. It's a 2-step process. You can go to our website, first of all, and that's listed. You do have to get a government number. You enroll with the government. You go to our website, you give us that 4-digit number, and then we credit you $30.
Gotcha. And that's every bill.
Every bill, $30 a month. If you're in a tribe, it's $75 a month. And we'll walk you through that process by emailing me or Sean, or we'll be around too the next couple of weeks. Yes.
For households that already had Forethought and now Vero, do they need to do anything to upgrade to this?
No, we'll be contacting you for the conversion, and for you guys, you're being converted at a lower, at the price you're paying now. So you're paying about $10 less than we're going to market.
Thank you.
You can upgrade your speed though, if you want. Pretty exciting. So I'm very grateful to be here. It's a great place. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And for those that are online, that presentation will be shared following the meeting.
Nobody said it could happen.
All right, the next, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yeah.
The next item on our agenda is new business for a resolution 2022-19, a resolution adopting the master plan for the town of Silverton. I believe that we've got JJ here from Community Builders and maybe one of his colleagues.
And so the master plan was unanimously adopted by the Planning Commission on Tuesday, September 20th. The resolution to adopt the master plan is now being presented to the trustees to vote on and file with the town clerk. And JJ and Clark are here to give a short update on the master plan public process. We have, oh, and we have Rachel.
The whole crew, welcome.
Get the whole team tonight.
I feel like we should be popping champagne for you.
I know. I feel I might have a cocktail.
You guys.
Yeah, right. We'll be there. We'll talk about that. I'll start and then I'll let Clark say a few words, and we're going to keep this brief tonight because you've all seen this very recently, but thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here presenting or discussing the final master plan. It's been a really great process and so enjoyable getting to know so many folks in the community. You have a wonderful community. We're going to continue working there one way or another. We just love it, and we love the process. We feel like the community has really come together from when we started until now over the last year and a half. And that's been a real pleasure. So we'll probably say more things like that towards the end, but Clark, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have some slides, right, JJ?
We do. Yep.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and pull those up?
Sure.
Great. Yeah, why don't we get into that? And then, yeah, I mean, I'll share some thoughts at the end, but I think we can get you guys going here.
So we're going to start this off. So like I said, we're going to start just with a quick video that we are proud of that was produced over the course of the project. And then we're going to talk briefly about what we discussed at the Planning Commission meeting last week, actually. And then just a few comments and some closing comments. So we'll keep this pretty brief.
This is a cool video. Rachel, thanks for pulling this together. And, you know, this was something, hopefully it just tells a bit of the story of the project.
How people arrived here back in the 1870s and were able to come from all over the world and settle here, every ethnic group you can think of. It's just mind-boggling.
When we were younger, everybody worked at the mines, in the mill, and then all the restaurants, everything downtown was open. All the kids sold ore, rock specimens that their dads would get out of the mine, and you would sell them on the street to the tourists. So you would raise money that way. When you'd walk downtown past, it was always busy.
We moved to Silverton because our family found ourselves driving a lot to the mountains, and we said, why are we driving to where we want to be?
Impulsively chose to come to Silverton because I was a backpacker, a mountain trekker, and an artist.
I was born here in Silverton at the hospital when it was still fully functional.
We moved up here one rainy fall, rained like every day. It's awesome. I feel like if you ever get a chance to move to a place like Silverton, you have to take it because it's a wonderful place. It's not for everybody. That's why only about 500 people live here.
My favorite part about living in Silverton is definitely the access to the mountains. That's pretty incredible. My favorite part about the community in Silverton is just how much people care about each other. It's really cool to see people come together.
It has that quality of community that everybody in the world wants.
So Silverton, like most mountain communities, is seeing a huge surge in not only our economy, but in our local population. And so being a small community with limited resources, having such large growth in so many aspects really causes challenges as to how do we sustain the growth? How do we sustain our economy?
Our biggest challenge is just going to be sticking together because I've always said that we have more in common than we have in our differences.
The biggest challenge, I think, for Silverton is trying to adapt to the fast-paced world around us. Our infrastructure here is crumbling literally under the streets, and trying to maintain a town that has the same kind of infrastructure and services that the world around us, kind of requires us to upgrade and to be a part of.
So the Compass Project really started with the Silverton community needing guidance on who we are, who we want to be when we grow up, what are we going to become. So we created a partnership with community builders to guide us through community visioning. And what does the community want? Not just certain sections of the community and not just leadership, but what did Silverton as a whole want for the community?
I think when we're talking about a year-round economy and sustainability, we have to think of diversification. It's tricky for us to just rely on tourism, whether that's winter or summer, but I see us being able to diversify some of the user groups that come here. What if we were able to produce more of our resources that our town needs for growth right here in our community? And I think at the end of the day, recognizing that the future vision for Silverton really belongs to us all.
If you had 150 or even 100 full-time jobs year-round, it would make this back into what I would say is a good community again.
Lots of different factions in this community. We call them little castles, and there's all these different castles in Silverton. And they were able to make all these people talk to each other and talk about similar issues, which was really beautiful for our small and notoriously divided community. Compass Project really allowed our community to engage in a dialogue that moves us forward rather than backwards.
And because of the Compass Project and now turning into the Silverton Master Plan, that will give us the blueprint to address our issues like economy diversification and the housing challenges that our community faces.
And I look forward to just thriving, kicking butt, because that is what Silverton people do. Whether you work at Silverton Mountain, or you work in the tourism industry in the summer, or you're in the construction trades, or you used to work in the mines, I don't care. People in Silverton know how to kick butt. That's what we do.
So that was something we just wanted to put together to, again, try to help capture the story of the project. It's a little catchy there, I think, just because of downloading speeds. But JJ, go ahead and take it away. And thanks to everybody for letting us share that story with you.
Yeah, thank you, Clark. So you've heard me say this a bunch of times over the last several months. I'll say it again, though. Your community kicks butt, like Nico said. Over 50% of your community participated in this process, whether in person or online. I'm not going to go through all the different meetings we did, but you all know we did a ton of meetings, small groups, large groups, and a lot of virtual meetings. And over 350 people out of your 650 or 700, depending on what day of the week or what season it is, participated in one way or another. And that's amazing. I've been doing this for 25 years across the country, and to get that kind of percentage of participation is incredible. Over the last several weeks, the plan has been sent to everybody that we have an email address for. So we have probably 300 of those 350. Not everybody wants to give their email out. It's been posted on the Compass Project website, Facebook. We've received a fair amount of comments over the last couple of weeks, or couple of months, I should say. And we've been addressing those. We addressed many at the Planning Commission. And we're going to talk real briefly about the Planning Commission meeting. So last week, last Tuesday, we had a Planning Commission meeting, and they unanimously adopted the plan with just a few what I'll call minor edits and requests. And some of their comments first included, I'm not going to read all these, but they talked about the collaboration, how impressive that was. They were really appreciative of the implementation section in the plan. I personally I really enjoy that section of the plan. That we see, like I said, I've been doing this for a very long time, and a lot of plans provide a lot of great ideas, but they don't give you that roadmap of how to get there. And I think through this process and with the collaboration with you all, the implementation section really is a great guide for you to bring many of these ideas to fruition. And it is an inclusive process. The plan is laid out easy. Again, just reading comments from the commission. A lot of people put a lot of time. There was a lot of volunteer time into this. Our project management team, our task force teams, you all, the trustees, as well as the community in general, just countless hours of volunteer time. So we think, and actually one of the commissioners, Austin, brought this up last week, said this process is actually a great framework and a roadmap for other processes that the community moves forward with. So a few edits. I'll start with probably what was the largest edit, even though maybe the word count of the edit was maybe the smallest, but probably the one that caused the most amount of discussion. And we spent a good 20 minutes or so talking about this. And it was about the Kendall area improvements. So through that discussion, and these ideas were brought up throughout the process, where we added key attributes of the vision for the Kendall area improvements. So when you're thinking about whatever happens to Kendall, the attributes of that should be: keep it small scale, keep it family oriented, keep it affordable, keep it independent and or municipally owned, and a limited or minimal minimal base area residential and or commercial development. Not none, but some small amount. We also included this next edit was in the previous draft, there were examples in the plan that showed other small ski areas in Colorado, really just to provide a framework for reference, similar to what we've done throughout the document. We have examples of housing types throughout the document that show here's an example of what Frisco, Colorado did. Here's an example of what was done in Durango. Here's an example, and you name the community, just to provide different ideas in a frame of reference. So for that same reason, we provided some examples of other independent and or municipally owned and operated ski areas in Colorado that have these similar attributes. And this is as of 2022. So what that means is some of these areas could change, and this is a 10-year plan. So that's why we added the as of 2022 attributes of similar ski areas: Howson Hill, Ski Cooper, Monarch, Powderhorn, and Sunlight. And this is the actual language in there. So I just, basically just read what this says, but so you can see those changes. One thing I didn't mention, another minor one, is utilizing, so under 1A here, utilizing the 2022 DHM Kendall conceptual design. So you have a process going on right now for the Kendall area where the consulting firm DHM out of Durango is providing ideas and drawings and some conceptual documentation for what could happen. So this action item is basically saying whatever comes out of that process, continue to move forward with that. And then there was just a minor clarification. So if you recall, and I have it in here if you want to see it, there's a framework diagram that shows different ideas of consolidating your zoning districts, infrastructure improvements, new trail connections. One piece that was added, one sentence that was added to that per request of planning commissioners was this one that's underlined. Additional community process would be required to make the zone district modification. That kind of goes for any major elements in this plan. Kendall, for example, like this master plan does not say Kendall area should expand like this, and you follow this plan, and that's what's going to happen. Similar to the zoning changes, when you get to that point of making those changes, there will be additional community process required. So that's what this note makes. And then the other edits were really minor, like literally under the definition of light manufacturing, just adding the word making of consumer products. The previous draft said assembly. So just some wordsmithing. Under economy, we changed Silverton is a prime flying sport paragliding destination to A. We were told by several people, it's not prime. You can do it there, but it's not prime. You can go fly and paraglide there. We added summer to mountain biking, to spring and fall. And then MSI, we had the wrong word in there. We fixed that to institute. And then the last one was adding the Silverton Single Track Society to a list of supporting partners. So those, I believe, I told you this was going to be quick. Those were the major changes. Of course, we're going to open it up to discussion right now. I want to mention that Clark and I, unfortunately, Rachel can't be there, but Clark and I will be in town on October 20th, and we're going to bring back the potluck. We're going to have a community celebration. I'm going to bring my green chili. Clark's, I don't know, I'm going to put you on the hook, Clark. Clark's going to bring Modelo or something. But anyway, we're going to be in town in about 3 weeks, and super excited about that.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple quick points. First of all, just congratulations to you all for getting through this. As you can see, we try to the very end, just be as scrupulous as we can with the detail. Thanks, JJ. That was really good detail all the way down to the acronyms. So good. I think what's good for you guys to recognize just how far you've come through this process. I know it was a lot. Probably took longer than necessarily people would have necessarily wanted, but I was really impressed to see the way that the community participated. I was really impressed to see the way that I think there was a lot of people that went through this and didn't necessarily get everything that they wanted, but got elements that they felt really good about, and decided, because they saw the way that the process was going, that they were good with that. And so this was one of those processes that I do think helped you guys thread the needle on a lot of things that weren't easy to thread the needle on. And that means, again, there's going to be some parts where not everybody loves it to an entirely A+ level, but I feel really, really strongly, and I've been able to work with you guys from the very beginning when we were first conceptualizing this. I was actually in this very same room doing a Zoom with you guys, talking about potentially doing this project. And, I feel really strongly with the process that you guys have helped us and partnered with us to do. It makes me feel really good to see the comments from the Planning Commission that I think it was Austin's comment that you guys have sort of maybe built your own capacity to be able to do this type of stuff and use this as a framework going forward. That's one of the things we try to do when we partner with communities is we don't try to act like a consultant where we just come in and hand you a product. Our hope is that by the way that we engage with you guys, by the end, you guys are in a better position to move these types of things forward. And that doesn't mean you won't need help on things sometimes, but I feel pretty confident that that is also the case. So I also think it's worth noting that some people put a heck of a lot of time into this. The project management team, so Gloria, Deanne, Melissa, Anthony, Tracy, just so many hours week in, week out to help us move this thing forward, and really appreciate that. And then also really appreciate all the members of the task force early on who helped kind of get this thing on the rails. And then all the action planning teams that put so much time and effort into really taking the vision and the ideas and crafting them into solutions. You know, a lot of community work went into this, and I feel really safe in saying this is not, I've said it from the beginning and I'll say it again, this is not going to be the type of thing where we just take it back to the lab and come up with our own ideas. You know, you guys drove this thing, you guys carried this. We've just simply been guides along the way. And this was a community effort. You guys in Silverton did this and we just helped. So I just say congratulations on the efforts, and you know, really look forward to celebrating, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you. And of course, we welcome any commentary or anything like that.
Thank you guys very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with the community builder team. And I agree with the comments from the planning commission that the contribution that you guys made to this community is so outsized from what we expected. And it's setting us on a really cool trajectory. Trustees, any discussion, comments, questions for Clark? JJ?
Great success, and thank you very much.
Yeah, this is a tremendous accomplishment. I have nothing but gratitude for the whole town.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-19, a resolution to adopt the master plan for the town of Silverton.
I'll second it.
Trustee Davis. Yes. Trustee Kreenker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bureau.
Yes.
Trustee George. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yay.
We'll
Thank
see you guys.
you.
We'll see you guys next time we're in town, which will be in October.
Yeah, we'll see you on the 20th.
I'll bring them.
Yeah, we can't wait. All right. Thank you all so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next item on our agenda is new business item 4B, Affordable Housing Townhomes Modular RFP release.
I am still celebrating inside. So Anthony Edwards, working in his capacity as the housing coordinator, has drafted this RFP for 5 affordable duplex modulars or 10 units total. Dates have been left vague for draft purposes. Once we choose a general contractor or firm, we can apply for the Department of Housing funding for the difference between the cost of the unit and the affordable sales price. And then we are asking for a mix of 1 to 3 bedrooms. And we have preemptively applied for funding for the foundation pours through DOLA's IHOI grant. And we did this on September 2nd. The purchasing policy requirements of a 10% local preference doesn't really apply since there's no modular manufacturers in San Juan County, and that's why that was left out. And then if all of our funding ducks line up, we would be able to erect and sell these affordable units by the end of next fall. It's a lot of funding things that have to line up, but
Yeah. It's impressive and a pretty great goal.
Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, so it's 5 modular units, which would be 10 units, because it's 5 duplexes. Right. But the units could be any number of bedrooms.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
We're asking them kind of the potential firm or contractor to give us their proposal.
Yeah, great. Okay. And then the memo said that we're asking for a grant for 6 foundations. Did that mean 5?
5, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Quiet group tonight.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing something, like, so with the affordable aspect, I think it'd be deed restricted as well, and we have a plan for it after they're sold.
Yes, so they would be deed restricted and income restricted as well.
Any sort of housing require, or like work requirement?
We are working through that process right now with Anthony. But at first we thought maybe we should put together the whole program before we went out, but then all these opportunities started coming up. So we needed to kind of put together the program while we applied for the grants.
That's all not, okay, so I'm not missing everything on that.
Right. And that final program will be presented to you all for the final approval, of course.
I was wishing that we had Jess's expertise back on the board, but just questions on kind of, is there anything we really need to think about when thinking about modular builds and our code and our climate, environment, maintenance, all that, like if John's weighed in or any of that?
Yeah, so Anthony actually worked with Bill and Bevan on this as well as John. So we tried to circulate it. We wanted to get this to you actually last month, but we've been working on this RFP for a while to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row.
So they feel like the ducks are in a row.
Yep.
Okay.
And the units down at Anvil are, the apartments down there are also a similar modular build, correct?
They are, yes.
So
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
We debated back and forth on doing stick built versus modular. And when we talked to local contractors, we realized modular would be the quickest way to get things up, given everyone's schedule.
Mhm.
Do you have any sense of what's typical for grant matches for these kinds of projects? Like what we potentially would anticipate in the future for budget implications?
For the,
Like not for the RFP. Okay. We move forward and then we start pursuing funding. What's typical for?
So San Juan Development Association recently received $50,000 per house as a gap funding through the Department of Housing. That was kind of a larger amount. Typically, they would do a little smaller than that, but given our rural area and kind of the Anvil is very unique. They bumped it all the way up to 50. So that would kind of be our max goal for these units with the gap funding to be about 50,000.
That we get as a grant. And there wasn't a grant match for that grant with San Juan Development Association, was there? It was just from DOLA.
No, that would
be 200,000
grant.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the summary, in the timeline that we would be able to sell these as soon as late next summer. Would these all be for sale or would some of these be rentals?
The plan was all the townhomes would be for sale. The next phase would be the 16 apartment buildings. And those we were looking at rentals potentially.
You mean units? You said 16 apartment buildings.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Sorry.
16 unit apartments.
Cool.
Building. There you go.
One building,
16 apartments.
Got it.
Can we clarify too where we're talking about in orientation in Anvil? Because I know people talking, where are we talking about doing what? So
what we call the donut hole.
Yeah.
It would be on each side of the donut hole. So there would be
like east-west sides or
the long. So I guess if we elongated the donut hole, it would be on each side of the elongated.
Okay, so on one side towards the existing Anvil apartments, on the other side kind of towards the Y.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And then the single family houses would be in between, which are being built out now.
Is there any sense of what the sale prices might be? Or we have to wait and see what the build costs are and everything else like that?
Yeah, I would be nervous to put anything out at this point, but it would really depend on kind of the final build cost. We do have this great from the CHAPA performa that they gave us. So we have this great kind of program that we can play with those numbers with and say, okay, well, if the bill's this much, then we can. So all the formulas are already in there, which was a great asset to have.
Since, I mean, the county's been doing housing for a minute, far more than a minute. I'm using colloquial minute. On our website, since this is kind of our first foray into housing, can we create a housing tab that people can access and it'll provide information? We already have one. Oh,
Yep.
sweet. Okay.
Yeah, but we do want to build it out a little bit more. Right now, it just shows basically how to get a hold of Anthony and our studies that have already been done.
Great. And then as information comes out about how to like apply for this and how to qualify and all of that, that'll be there.
Yes, that's the goal.
This is a brand new tab.
There we go.
Nice.
Thanks, Nathan.
You guys are on top of it.
It seemed like Anthony's email was wrong at the top. Minor typo. It was housing at Schaller Edwards, where everyone else is housing at .ca.
Yes.
I've been editing documents a lot lately, so I.
Was the RFP modeled after other RFPs we've done?
It was gonna smash together 3 RFPs that we've been working on for this project, and then and yeah, it was a combination of all 3 of those.
Great. Jim or Sally? Great.
Do we need a motion or direction? Motion.
Should be a motion to release it.
I'd make a motion to release the modular duplex RFP. Or the RFP for the modular duplexes, rather.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Kränker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierma.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yeah.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion to release the RFP passes unanimously.
Fantastic. All right, moving on to new business item 4C, Roberts Development Deviation Review.
Can you promote John Sites to panelists, please? Thank you.
There we go. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So this particular item is concerning Rick and Ellen Roberts, who would like to build up in Block 58, which is located up on the hill, approximately 8th and Snowden Streets, or 8th and Bluff. If you know where Sandra Campazano's house is, it's above that. They've gone through the process of development review with Public Works and the town engineer. All that stuff was based on SGM did a development plan up there back in 2006 or 2007. And most of the work was based upon that original plan. When we reviewed it. And we went back and forth with the Roberts to get what we wanted as far as water and sewer went. There is a tough spot there, though, as far as the street development goes. There's a steep drop off on 8th Street there above Lauren Lou's house at the end where 8th terminates into the hill. And in order to make the street work up above that steep drop off, they're going to have to narrow it considerably. And in order to do that, the town board needs to approve the deviation from our development standard. So taking that in consideration, this is something that has been done in town in the past. An example is Snowden Street at Sandra Campuzano's house was narrowed because 20 years ago that the willows above her house were considered to be a wetland. So she didn't have to make the street 100 feet wide. And I think that we're going to see this in most of the development that is going to continue in town. We're going to have to narrow the streets in order to continue to allow people to build houses on their properties. So the question before you is whether or not you think that this deviation from our development standards is acceptable. And I did include an excerpt from the development standards that kind of lines that out. And a quote from the development standards is, "When the quality of the finished work would not vary materially from the intent of these requirements, that they can be approved." And staff, myself, I do not think that this should be a problem for this development. If we require every street to be 80 or 100 feet wide, it's going to prevent people from being able to develop their investments. So with that said, it is staff's recommendation that that we approve this, but it's open for discussion or comment by the board. Or if you have any questions that I can answer, I'm glad to do that.
I had a question, John, for you. What's the real downside to narrowing the width of the street? What's the impact to the town? Obviously, there's a big impact to the property owner if they can't, because their land is not as easily developed. But what's the downside for the town? And how much are we talking about narrowing it?
It's going to be at the curve, it's going to be quite a bit narrower. But going up 8th Street, it's also going to be narrower. I think that first I'll start with a pro in that I think that it'll be a lot easier for us to store snow and plow up there. And I would consider that on the hill, even if it gets fully developed, there will be less traffic up there than there is in town, in the more congested areas of town. It'll be primarily residential. And so I think having narrower streets would, like I said, it'd be beneficial for plowing and snow storage, but I can't really see a huge downside unless those areas became very congested. Like on Blair Street, Green Street, Reese Street, we really need a very wide street there because of all the traffic and the congestion. But you get up to, say, the north part of Mineral Street and Cement Street, it's very residential up there and it's not very congested, and the streets are wider than they really need to be. So it's more to plow, so it's more expensive to maintain those wide streets up there. A lot of times we don't maintain them to full width anyway, because it would be kind of ridiculous. But it also increases green space. So if the street isn't developed to full width, then you have more grass. And even though it's not their property, it's more space for children to play. It's more like park space. Even though it's town right away, it's not developed as a street, nor does it necessarily need to be, in my opinion. If that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. And then you hit on this earlier. If this is going to keep coming up, is it something that we should talk about in our code review? Or just, again, if more of the lots are not the typical infill lots as town sees more development, is this something we should consider at a process level so homeowners and landowners don't have to necessarily keep going through it on a one-off basis?
I think that's a good point. And that is something that we should address as we go to do our code and development standard revision. I'm going to make a note of that right now.
Any other questions for John? Or comments?
Seems to have John's support. I would think parking, less street, but with the less congestion up there, and then maybe thinking about the future, like building houses, you have to build parking spaces too. Seems like a good way to cite it, bring that in.
One more comment I would add to that, trustee, and I appreciate that comment, is that I do think that the long streets, the named streets, not the numbered streets, will require those to be wider, because that's where the homes will front in most cases. Whereas on the numbered streets, homes will not be fronting on those streets as much. And if they do, then we can also require them to extend the street to their property so that they have a place to park there on those numbered streets.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the deviation from the town development standards as presented in the Roberts site plan for improvements on Snowden and 8th Streets at their intersections on the corners of block 58.
I'll second it. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Kränker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierna. Yes. Trustee George.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is new business item 4D, pest well update and water security discussion. Back at John for this one.
Yep.
I'll take this one as well. Okay, so I don't know if you took the time to read this epic memo on this one, almost over a page and a half. But we've been planning for water security since 2019. I've been thinking about it longer than that. We had the town engineer and staff basically did an analysis of what our water security situation, our water supply in particular, looks like in the future. And we also, our sources are also, they're extremely high quality, and we've got really good volume most of the time, but they're surface water sources, so they have vulnerabilities. So we're looking at other options to bolster our water security. And in that study that was done in 2019, the top recommendation of the town engineer was to drill a municipal well, which that's a fantastic solution if we can get high quality water. But it's come to light over the last 8 or 10 months that the groundwater in Silverton and even in the caldera around Silverton is typically not produced well quality water unless you do a great deal of treatment to it. So if we drill wells over there and we have plenty of quantity but poor quality, then it's going to cost millions of dollars to get that pumped up to the plant in terms of supply lines and potentially treatment upgrades. So we were tipped off by a local water scientist who contacted me about something totally different. And I mentioned to him that we were going to drill some test wells, and he said, you might want to take a good look at that. And in fact, the U.S. Geological Survey is doing a study on the fault lines in the caldera right now, and they're about to wrap it up sometime this summer. So we stayed on track for our test well project, which was going to happen in October. And we've been waiting on the USGS to see if they could give us some more information. And they are not available to do that, even though they're willing. They're not available until mid-October. So we are scheduling a meeting to consult with them about the feasibility of a well. And it may not be a solution for us. But rather than spending more resources and more money on this project, grant money and town money, I consulted with Gloria, and I feel that it's best to wait at least until we can get free consultation from the USGS before we continue with this project, because I just hate to waste resources. And this is a $90,000 project for a fact-finding mission. We may or may not have good water quality here underground. Now, conversely, surface water in San Juan County and a lot of places is fantastic, not unlike Boulder and Bear Creeks. Other solutions, if wells don't work out, include a surface water, raw water reservoir, more water storage of finished water. We have other options. And finally, I'd just like to say again that this is not an emergency project. This is something that we can continue to work on over the next year, 2, 3 years until we come up with the best solution. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I don't know if you would like to discuss this further or if you have more questions, but this memo is intentionally informational other than potential questions and discussions. I'll turn it over to you guys.
I had a quick question. Of the grants available for this project, do we risk losing any by postponing?
I don't think so. We would have to reapply. The largest grantor is the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And I've talked to our grant administrator with them, and we actually did postpone that grant last year because of the cost of the project doubled. But they seem to be behind this project. And I believe if we had a good recommendation from the USGS that yes, here is a good location for a test well, I don't think we would have a problem retaining those grant funds.
Thank you.
I had a question, John, on the RFP that we published for the well drilling portion. I'm not recalling the exact language in it, but if we don't move forward, is there any legal liability to the town, or was it at our discretion?
No, it was at our discretion, and they're aware. I notified them immediately that, well, for one thing, we didn't get a complete bid package. The project has two parts. One is drilling, and the other part is testing the water. And we did not get a bid for the water testing part of it. So they were well aware. They're busy. There will be no liability there.
Thanks.
One more question. Right now, we're in a pretty good place. We have 2 great sources of water, and we had a very wet year so far. So it's easy for us to have this discussion about, kind of taking our foot off the gas a little bit on this project. But I guess my question is, since water security has been such a high priority for the municipality for years, even if holding off on this particular project is the best, most efficient idea, are there other things we can do to more aggressively pursue water security so that if we do end up in a drought situation in the near future and have a fire in town and have increasing population, that we don't find ourselves in an emergency?
Yes. I think that we aggressively pursue some of the planning for some of the other options, including more storage, whether it be raw or treated. Those two would be at the top of my list to pursue. There's also good water coming out of Swansea Gulch next to the ski area. We could pursue a water right there. As far as legal water retention, if we get a call on our water sources because of a drought, well, we would like to redo our wastewater plant. And if we do, we won't need lagoons anymore. We could convert the lagoons into a fishing pond. And if we get a call, we just open a valve and it slowly goes into the river. So there are a lot of things that we have considered and we will continue to consider, and it will continue to be a major priority as far as I'm concerned for big picture public works planning.
Thank you.
Do you anticipate USGS needing some sort of compensation for the consultation that they may provide?
I don't know. They typically would not, that's not what they do. They don't bill governmental agencies. It's more about them getting together and reviewing their findings from their study. So they're just going to educate us. We will have a Zoom meeting and they're going to say, this is what we found. This is how it may or may not affect groundwater quality in your proposed well site locations.
Anything else? Well, John, thank you very much for this update.
You're welcome. I will keep you in the loop as we move through this, the immediate part as far as the well project goes, and we'll stay on top of water security and you all will be involved. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Cool. The next item on our agenda is 4E, CDOT TAP Blair Street match discussion and resolution 2022-20, a resolution of the town of Silverton to authorize expenditure of $500,000 for the purpose of applying for CDOT's Transportation Alternatives Grant for the revitalization of Blair Street.
And so just a little background, a CDOT representative who knew about our previous applications for Blair Street contacted me last month and encouraged us to apply for the CDOT's Transportation Alternatives Program grant. Lucy and Todd have been working on updating the application while I've been searching for matching funds. We can commit up to $500,000 from our general fund and spend on our cash balance. That is the option before you all. There was a local match application with the state, but the application goes live today and is past our October 3rd deadline. And they still haven't laid out the parameters of that match yet. And so I also have Bill Walco here with the Blair Street Association, and he would like to introduce himself and speak.
Hi, I'm Bill Walco. Many of you know me, but there's a few board members that may not be familiar with the process of the Blair Street Historic District Association and their involvement with trying to get community support and town support for the redevelopment of Blair Street and the infrastructure. We've had a couple of goes at the apple here in the last 2 years. where we were not successful in acquiring the grant funding that we were seeking. So these opportunities don't come along every day. And I just want to reiterate that the Blair Street Historic District Association is fully supportive of this process. We ask for your support in doing this. The Blair Street Association is continuing to commit $40,000 to this project from our funds. And knowing that construction costs are going up rapidly and will probably continue to do that, I know it's easy to have sticker shock when looking at the price tag for a project like this. But I think if we look back 5 years from now, we'll realize that it is a relative bargain, because if we wait till the next opportunity, perhaps in 2 or 3 years, it may simply be out of reach for us. And the other thing to consider is that the sooner we have the infrastructure in place to support continued business development in the other part of our business district, the better off the community will be in terms of revenue stream, which is essential for this community's growth and health. So I ask for your support for this application and look forward to good things in the future with everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not going to get away with being quiet on this one. Who'd like to start the discussion?
Well, I guess the first thing I'll ask is we just were denied a similar grant, correct, from CDOT, and then this one is different, but also they reached out to us.
Yeah, so
Encourage us to apply.
the previous grants have been based off of safety and are like accident numbers. And we just did not score high enough in those categories to, and I hate to say that, like, it's good, but
Very safe, so we won't give you a test.
in order to get those grants. So, you know, talking to CDOT representatives and being like, okay, but how do we fund this? Like, how can we get this funded? And the suggestion was that we apply for this transportation alternatives program, which is administered through our local transportation called. Now all I can think of is the acronym of TAP, but our local transportation CDOT group is the
SFARTA.
Yes.
Southwest Regional Transportation Authority.
Yes. So that's administered more locally, and I have had Lucy attending those meetings in preparation for this grant and in advocacy for this for our project.
And so our match would be 500,000
Up to. So the engineers gave us two estimates. One is a lower side, and they're both in your packet. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I've got it 1.8 or 2.3.
Right, so it'd be 20% of the actual price.
Was there follow-up with them that this quote is still within the ballpark since it was given in January?
We actually just updated that quote.
Okay.
Yep. So that was just updated, and it's only if we get the grant, would we actually expend those funds? And actually, if we did get awarded the grant, at that point, we could actually reassess if we wanted to.
So it's an 80-20 grant.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all for leveraging our money, especially for something that's, you know, a lot of the grants we do are 50-50. 80-20 is a great way to, we can really get a lot out of, you know, up to $500,000 for that. So, and we've been working on trying to get something going for Blair Street and, you know, coming up a little bit short over the last few years. So I would be in support of, you know, going after it and you know, seeing if we can get it. When I didn't see, when is the decision made?
Did you see that?
I can't recall us.
Sometimes they announce those things, sometimes they don't. Did they announce it in this one?
I'd be happy to go back and look real quick.
And you said in the memo, that the next call for applications or notice of available funding would be anticipated for 2024 through 2026. So again, is this, I mean, Tyler's mentioning that it's a pretty good way of leveraging funds. Do we expect a better deal to come around anytime soon with any of the infrastructure money or anything else that's happening?
I mean, we get it as it gets rolled out. So we don't really know, if another one's coming up, but this program in particular, we know the next cycle.
Yeah.
I don't have. I know that the match money that's coming from the state is mostly focused on water, sewer, and broadband. And those are the parameters I've been given for that. So knowing that and that it's being rolled out today, I was kind of waiting for that to present this to you all, but it was just rolled out today. So kind of a little too late for this grant deadline that's on the 3rd.
And if we did win this and we were awarded some percentage of that, do we have that money in our budget to match it?
Yes.
We do.
Yes, in our ending fund balance is as of last year over $1 million. So considering that and thinking about spending it down, we would have enough money. I don't anticipate us actually going into that at all this year. We might even be contributing to it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have information from your priority-based budgeting workshop on, just because it looks like from the memo, we can afford it by with the funds that were, that are already in the general fund, but there were other projects that were, people were giving input on. Do we have input yet on? Because if we were awarded the grant and we do have to spend down, or we get to spend down $500,000 on Blair Street, then it will make less money available for potentially like another opportunity in a different capital improvement project.
So the priority-based budgeting, I actually backed out of that, but if you're referring to like our capital improvements program that we started. Yeah. So our capital improvements program that goes until October 12th for people to prioritize those projects. So right now we don't have
the deadline on committing to these matching funds. Sorry, I can go back to the memo.
October 3rd. Today.
Copy that. Okay. And if we didn't commit to it in this budgeting cycle, we're still eligible to apply for the same program, the same granting program next year. Is that correct? That's what you were kind of saying to Dana.
We are eligible to apply in the next cycle, but we are not sure that, like right now we know that they have a lot of funding to give. The next cycle might be more competitive with less funding. Maybe they'll have more funding then, but we just don't know. Right now, we know they have the funding to make it a competitive grant for us.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, it's anticipated the next funding cycle will be 2024 to 2026.
Yep.
At the earliest.
Was there any talk in the Blair Street planning, or Bill, while you're here, you could maybe comment to this? I'm wondering about kind of the public-private partnership in this, right? Where I know in our code, we have property owners having a certain amount of responsibility for sidewalks and certain frontage improvements, and then the town also having certain responsibilities. So is there any concept on, as we do this work, is it all shouldered by the town and grant funding, or is there connections with local property owners, or is that really where the Blair Street Historic Association comes in? Just help educate me about the history there with those folks and the association and the town, if you have any input.
Going back several years, even before my involvement in it, there were attempts to deal with the lacking infrastructure on Blair Street. And at that time, Town Hall had little or no interest and little or no funding to address it. So we looked at two basic avenues to approach it. One was to roll up our sleeves and do fundraising, beg whatever we could do, and try to do limited self-improvements on our own. But we understood a piecemeal approach was still going to require town approval because we're talking about improvements on town property. And there's limited things that can be undertaken by property owners directly in that regard. The other approach was to consider a special improvement district and have set up a taxing authority where property owners would have to do that. But considering the fragile finances of many property owners, particularly those on Blair Street, where their incomes are dramatically less than Green Street properties, it just wasn't politically supportable. And we tried that approach, but we just really couldn't get there. And so we decided that the only thing that was really left available was to get the town of Silverton to fully support the process and seek outside funding sources so that we could get the project done to the proper scale and to the proper engineering quality, and do it in a reasonable time frame while we're all still upright. A lot of the sidewalks on Blair Street go back about 90 years to the WPA days. That's really not acceptable. It doesn't encourage anyone to make business investments on Blair Street.
Thanks for the context.
I just wanted to follow up Mr. Walco's comments as it relates to the municipal code. It can be found in section 11-2-20 powers and duties. It's also listed in the memo. But what it states is the Public Works Director shall have the immediate control and management of all things pertaining to town streets, alleys, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and crosswalks, and shall perform all acts that may be necessary for the prudent, efficient, safe, and economical management and protection of public right-of-ways, property, facilities, subject to the approval of the Board of Trustees. Typically, when we talk about sidewalks, for the same reason we really don't allow curbside vending, is it's part of the public right-of-way. I do know that there's ordinances dating back quite a ways obligating residential areas to improve their own sidewalks out of their own pocket. I'm not sure without a little more research that applies to these public right-of-ways in our economic district.
Yeah, I think that would be worth exploring because we do have in our code that it's the duty and responsibility of any owner of property fronting any street within the town to construct and maintain the sidewalk, curb, gutter adjacent. And I know that we make, a builder builds a home, they have to put a sidewalk around it. So that's why I was just curious, kind of town property owner delineation here. I mean, obviously in the Blair Street proposal, there's a lot more than just sidewalks being discussed. And so I think
It predate my time, but I believe the Green Street was done municipally.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to talk for a minute. I think this one's really tough. I think that the Blair Street Association has done everything to tee this up in the most professional way possible. I mean, the plan was presented to us in 2019.
Yes.
It's a very professional plan. It's very thorough. When it was presented, we had no budget capacity to even consider it. We were like, wow, this is amazing. I can't wait till this is something that we can actually look to accomplish. And it's a very good plan for the town. It definitely is needed. I don't think I was prepared to see the budget ask this quickly. It's a plan that has been in our radar and on the shelf for 3 years, 2.5 years. But I wasn't we kind of got heads up about this because of the opportunity and CDOT reaching out on Wednesday. And so the idea of considering allocating up to $500,000 of our budget to a plan that we've known about for a very long time. And we've only had a couple days to really digest, or a few days to digest it. I'm struggling with that a little bit. When I think objectively about pros and cons, leveraging an 80-20 grant opportunity is incredible. And it's very compelling. We also are coming off of 2-3 years of really great sales tax numbers. So we do have surplus budget and the capacity to consider it, which is something we didn't even anticipate happening this quickly in 2019, 2020. We also are facing a good amount of economic uncertainty nationally. So who knows how long we ride this positive wave and how long a potential recession could happen. We have a bunch of pretty ambitious capital improvement projects that we're looking at. I don't think any of them are teed up as well as this one is. But we do have a lot of other projects that this may be like a financial scarcity moment where it's like, if we do this, there are things we're definitely not going to be able to pursue as quickly. I also think about the planning for other townwide infrastructure, like our water treatment facility, making sure that we have surplus funds available when we do start aggressively pursuing grant opportunities for that, and whether or not, keeping such a large general fund balance might actually be a good thing for a couple of years, since we're getting closer and closer to needing those funds for something like a water treatment facility overhaul. I'm pretty torn on this one. It would be very, very cool to do. I just don't know, how much we're kind of betting on a continued bright financial horizon by committing to it.
I would stress that this is essentially town employees kind of shooting their shot. This isn't a financial commitment today. We're asking for the ability to pursue these funds aggressively, and there would be another opportunity for financial consideration if the grant were awarded. These grants can be hyper competitive, so we typically want to pursue every opportunity we can. But if we are awarded the grant, we would have to accept it via resolution. So there would be another chance to kind of look in the wallet if it were awarded. So we are speaking in somewhat hypothetical terms today. It would be my recommendation as staff, though, that we don't overlook the opportunity, because there will be another chance before we're writing any checks. But we even need to know if this is a real possibility and it's awarded. So this really is just trying to pursue this as best we can.
I do have one staff question, I think, which is, do we have the capacity to, I know that time and effort has already been spent preparing the application, but do we have the capacity to actually manage the process up to an award? And then if we were to get awarded, do we have the capacity to pursue this project alongside the other, the Columbine Park project that we're already working on, the housing project that we'll be breaking ground on next year, hopefully? And if we don't currently have the capacity, do we have the budget to create the capacity for staff to take this on?
And that's kind of why we brought Lucy into the fold on this one, is creating that capacity. And of course, I would be lending my time to help guide her through that process. But as far as Columbine Park goes, I feel like after next year, we open up again with capacity. So this wouldn't be something necessarily that would start, in April. It would probably be through a planning phase and then go, and we have most of the planning done though. But get the final engineering and then probably start, I don't know, in the fall or maybe the next spring, depending on the cycle. So that was kind of our thought on how if you think of that Gantt diagram that I like to write out, the Blair Street would be done, then we would kind of start, or the Columbine Park would be done, and then we would kind of start on this one. So, and that's also, hopefully we could utilize Lucy for that as well. That's why we're bringing her in from the very start.
Certainly construction management and grant administration, but it's almost like from a staff capacity perspective, once these projects are in motion and they're awarded a contractor, a lot of our heavy lifting is done at that point. The hard part can often be acquiring the funds, getting the planning done, getting the community input, and getting the swell of momentum behind it. In the case of this project, once it's, if it's awarded and we begin and we select a contractor, the bulk of that heavy lifting falls onto the contractor at that point. Grant administration is tedious, but certainly not something that's not within our capacity.
But that being said, it would also probably be at capacity with this grant. We would be at capacity.
Jim, what do you think?
Thank you. I think this project in the Blair Street group has been working very hard for quite a while now. And we have an opportunity at our feet that we need to take advantage of and strike where the iron is hot. It's a pretty big 80-20 is huge. And it's something that's much needed, and it's something that Blair Street definitely needs. They need a shot in the arm. Whether it's a business or residential, this needs to happen. If I were asked to vote for it, I'd vote yes. Plain and simple. That's me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
And also, Mr. Walco, you said that the Blair Street organization also had $40,000 to commit to this project. Could we use that towards the grant match as well? So we're not committing, say if it's $500,000, which is the maximum, then we're 460 or,
yes.
And then if it's, the low end, it would be 370, and then that's before their match. And so that after their match, then it drops down to like $330,000. So it's, we can get it a little bit lower and try and get as many funds as possible. But again, it's, the ability for the town staff to be able to administrate it is always a little bit of a concern, but you guys are pretty busy. So I guess, if you thought that you had the ability to administrate it and go after it, then I would support it for sure.
I would kind of echo what Tyler and Todd brought up too. Kind of leveraging the funds, and also this seems like exactly what we were talking about during our trustee retreats of, having all these past projects basically in the docket ready to go. We just need the money for it. And this seems like a really good opportunity to at least throw our hat in the ring and then be able to, like Todd said, reevaluate. And if we needed to change our mind, we could do that still. But I mean, it seems like we should at least pursue it and see where it takes us. This is a really good opportunity.
Do we have an idea of what the time frame would be for a decision if we were to move forward?
I just looked and they haven't announced any kind of award date. Did you find anything in your stuff?
I looked as well. I would say that award dates are either often ignored, but they've been harder to come by in the post-COVID era. It seems like a lot of them have submittal dates and application due dates. They often take their time in the review, and we're kind of at the mercy of the granting organization. I would certainly expect it to be within inside of 6 months. It would be atypical to not be.
Sorry, I just checked. It would be in February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm.
Gloria, a question I had for you. Well, a preface is that from the time I first came here, I heard Blair Street described as like, you know, the ugly stepchild. We need to do something about it. So I can hear your point, Bill, about just this has been a long time in coming, right? For a certain block off of Green Street. I've also heard from a lot of community members just the real need and concern about wastewater treatment plants and future infrastructure, right? That like, we can't necessarily increase our tourism base if we can't support what we currently have with our current infrastructure. And so would you feel like allocating this amount of money, if it is the full 500,000 that we need to match, does that put in jeopardy any of our future big infrastructure projects from your perspective? Or can you speak from a place of comfort when considering those alternatives?
Sure. And so when we think about so this would be out of the general fund.
Yep.
And the wastewater treatment or the water fund and the sewer fund both have capital improvement funds within those funds. So they have been saving as well for a bigger project. It's a lot easier to find money for water and wastewater than it is streets. That's what I found. So I would say that yes, and also this new opportunity coming up with with for a grant match from the state seems to just be with water, wastewater, and broadband. And with the infrastructure bills coming out, I'm more confident that we'd be able to find funding for our water and wastewater through those structures, and rather than having to rely on our general fund.
Thank you.
So if we say yes, and we're awarded the grant, and we complete the entire plan, do we have any sense of what the cost is to maintain kind of the updated infrastructure on Blair Street? And is that, I mean, does tax assessments of properties adjust based on how much nicer Blair Street becomes? And then do we generate income that way that then pays to maintain nicer sidewalks and signage and lighting? Or,
I'm not sure on that analysis. I would kind of ask Todd if we've done that analysis yet, which I'm not sure that we have. I think we've been so focused on getting the actual project done.
And in terms of maintenance, I would defer to John. When the project's completed, it really would be turned over to Public Works as far as snow removal, et cetera, things like that.
I mean, that's probably like a 10 to 20 year problem, not a 5-year problem, like thinking about the same like kind of issue we have with Green Street and like asphalt maintenance and repair and the trade we did with CDOT decades ago. And that's now coming to be an issue with us, but it was great for a long time. It's probably similar.
I think one thing that this project does that, as far as helping with our maintenance there is stormwater drainage. And we finally would have a system for where our stormwater goes. And it wouldn't be flooding like possible, other units. I think that's one of the biggest things that this plan offers is as far as benefiting all on that street would be that stormwater drainage system.
Yeah, sometimes proper infrastructure can make maintenance easier.
And I'm going to go ahead and assume the answer is yes, but the majority or entirety of Blair Street property owners that would be negatively impacted by street closures and construction during a busy season are prepared for.
We understand that there's an overlap between the tourist season and construction season. That's inevitable. In talking to John Seitz multiple occasions about this, I feel pretty comfortable that the layout and the timing of various construction events can be done in a way that mitigates the worst interruptions. But we're all prepared for a degree of interruption in order to achieve what we've been waiting for a very, very long time.
And similar to that, is there a working agreement with the train for any impacts to where they drop off and pick up their passengers?
I'm not aware of any direct impacts on their operation in that regard.
Okay. We don't have to like trench underneath where the tracks currently are or anything like that.
I don't believe so.
Okay. I think I've exhausted all my questions.
Good questions.
I would just further add, the town worked really closely with the Blair Street business owners and the Historic District Association to maintain an aesthetic that was pleasable to Blair Street and appealed to the business owners and residents over there. Everything's going to look pretty old timey, for lack of a better description. Replicated wooden boardwalks and period correct lighting, et cetera. And it was quite a process getting a consensus on those things, but we were able to achieve a consensus.
It's been a great process.
I think speaking for myself only, reserving the right to fully reconsider all this stuff if we're awarded the grant and there not being that set expectation that we're definitely moving forward and committing the funds at that point. I'd like to see if we can get this grant. I hadn't thought of that kind of framing. Like I thought tonight we're committing funds. But if we do actually if this is just a moment to go after a lot of grant funding, if we can get it, then I think that's the moment to consider it. And we can spend now till then, like thinking about the future maintenance costs and other questions we may have and be more mentally prepared to consider what a $300,000 to $500,000 commitment is. But I think I'm in support of seeing if we can get the grant.
Yeah, I can make a motion for resolution 2022-20 expending up to $500,000 grant match in support of the town of Silverton's application. Colorado Department of Transportation TAP grant program, transportation alternative program in support of the Blair Street revitalization / streetscape project.
Second. Oh,
Is it possible to qualify that motion to make sure it's super clear that we're considering it, but that we have to again make a decision if the grant's awarded to spend the funds, and that we're not, by making this motion, committing the town to spending the funds?
That might be a Clayton's question because we do have a resolution on the table. So I just want to make sure that we can do a qualifying.
Or is it even needed? Like, or I just want to make sure it's not ceremonial to accept the grant if awarded, and that we actually get to consider acceptance of the grant and commitment of the funds.
Oh, okay. As far as I know, any grant we could say no to once we get accepted, but I just wanted to double check with Clayton.
Yeah, Gloria, thank you. That's correct. I mean, you have the option in the future to take different action. I believe that the way this resolution is written is just that you're pursuing the grant funding. When it comes to actual accepting the grant and making the match, you could always withdraw at that time.
Okay, thank you. So I withdraw my request for that consideration. And so we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Cranker.
yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierman.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, fingers crossed, everyone.
All right, then, thank you for that discussion. Next item on our agenda is approval of consent agenda items, which includes a couple.
Yeah, so I included a couple letter of support, one for the Historical Society and one for MSI. There's also an MOU, a memorandum of understanding for the Department of Revenue that needs to be approved annually, as well as a liquor license training flyer, which we have changed from the original October 3rd date in here to October 4th at 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, the trainer misspoke and realized she wasn't even available on the 3rd. So it will be on the 4th at 10 o'clock for any liquor license holders, as well as those of us that administrate liquor licenses.
No liquor will be served at that meeting.
No liquor will be served at that meeting.
Wait, what?
Not get a license.
Oh. I'm gonna be sick that day.
I can make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Cranker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierman,
Yes.
trustee George,
yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Marty,
Yes.
Mayor Furman,
Yes.
motion passes.
Next item on our agenda is staff reports.
Well, we held town hall open house on the 14th of this month. And I'm going to say it was a success. It was the kickoff to our capital improvements programs. And I also did a presentation on kind of the state of the town, and we had over 50 people in attendance that night. It was great to see everyone here in this trustee chambers full, really. Very, very nice.
And I watched it on YouTube, and it was also great on YouTube. So I highly recommend checking it out if you couldn't make it in person.
Yes, it is on YouTube, so anyone can go check it out. And we are still soliciting prioritization of our capital improvements program until October 12th. And you can also vote on the cemetery fence until October 12th.
Are people coming to spend their town bucks?
Yes, they are. Yeah, we're really excited to open up those boxes and see where everyone's priority lies.
Any questions from the trustees about the staff reports in our packets or anything Gloria just briefed us on?
Your Gantt charts and your goals were lovely. If anybody would like to know what Gloria's goals are, they're in our packet.
I hope that's okay. I didn't have you vote on them this time. I just kind of put them in there. Okay.
I thought 22 taps for public works. It's a lot of taps.
It's just so far.
Yeah, so far, exactly.
30.
Anticipating 8 more to go.
Yeah. Considering we were at like 4 to 8
A year.
well, probably 3 or 4 years ago. So grown exponentially.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Up first, Finance Committee.
I gave the last update, so Jim and Tyler, I am practicing speaking less.
Gina, don't do that.
Well.
yeah,
I can speak if you guys want to. It was a very detailed, lengthy, almost 3-hour meeting where we went line item by line item, asked lots of questions, came up with really good solutions to current issues that we're having as a community. And I felt it was very instructive and informative for all 3 of us.
Jim and Tyler were very patient with all of my questions.
Oh, no. It was all of us.
Cool. Any other detail from that meeting that's relevant for sharing with the community and the board?
Nonprofit request.
nonprofit request form.
Yeah, and I did put that in the packet,
Yep.
so that you all can disseminate that information out and let nonprofits know that we are soliciting requests. I think we put in there up to 5,000 or up to
500 to 10,000, yeah.
500 to 10,000. And we've received one so far. So there's your update on that one. They are due on October 14th.
And that form is in our packet tonight.
Yep.
And I think for the community to know as well that Gloria has intentionally tried to make this not only limited to official 501c3s. So if you are, you know, an organization that is supporting the community, doing something locally, you're kind of technically nonprofit, right? You're not a for-profit company. You want to do a fun run, you want to do something like that, these kinds of requests could be considered. No guarantee they'll be funded, but they'll be considered. So you don't have to officially be a 501c3 to be considered.
And did I see this advertised in Silverton Standard as well?
Yes.
So it's out there. I know there's a bunch of nonprofits in town, so let's see some funding requests coming in. Okay. Planning Commission meeting.
We had a planning commission meeting and we did go through with community builders and go through the entire master plan. The planning commission had a lot of questions, but at the end of it, there was a unanimous vote to approve the master plan, to send it to this board to sign. And then the two other agenda items were for projects that are happening in the county. So one down at the south end of the county and one on Red Mountain Pass, and they were also approved, but they're no real effect. So
we also approved a letter of support for the San Juan County Historic Society of the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad for boxcar 3101.
oh, yep, thanks, Jim.
All right, moving on to trustee reports. I'll take this opportunity to address two things that I thought would be helpful, creating no obligation for us to address public comment in the future. That's the one-off. But to Robert's question or suggestion about the annex and the annexation of the Anvil Mountain development and those residents being able to vote and be part of the town officially, that's been a priority and it's in the works. The acquisition by the town of the property from the Zanoni family was a big step in us just being eligible to be able to annex that property, because there's a requirement that we have a certain amount of contiguous property with what's being annexed. And the town didn't currently own a property that created that contiguous property or that met that contiguous property qualification. And we now, they're really close, or we do. And so it's something that's being aggressively pursued. And then to Melody's comment about the Planning Commission, there is a Zoom link that they use every meeting that's somewhere publicly available, but I think we could probably make it more publicly available. And I'm going to formally make the request that we do that.
You can find it on the county's website somewhere deep down in there. It's the same link that they use for the county commissioner meetings. But yeah, it's definitely difficult, hard to find.
So maybe that's something we can put in a more obvious place on the town website as well. And if we can encourage the Planning Commission to also record to YouTube, that would be super awesome. I'd like to see more of those meetings, and I definitely can't see them all live. I'd appreciate that as well, but that would be a cool thing for us to do. So thank you, Melody, for making that comment. And that's all I have on trustee reports. Anybody else have a report? Okey-dokey. Moving on to continued business, item 9A, fireworks proposed budget discussion.
All right, so there's a memo in your packet in an attempt to help inform you and guide your decision this evening with funding options. For the fireworks vote that was held in the atrium of Town Hall since September 14th, the results were counted at 4 o'clock today. And the results are, there was 43 yeses for fireworks and 54 noes for fireworks. That's 97 people participated in this vote.
In clarification there, it was a yes or no on having fireworks or yes or no on an increase in the budget? I'm trying to remember how it was.
Yes or no, an increase in the budget.
Yes, thank you.
And then Molly is also here with the 4th of July Association. If we have any further questions, and I will leave it to you all to discuss at this point.
It's another one that nobody's gonna get to be shy about.
Well, can we get an update on Molly, when we spoke for this last 4th of July, it seemed like you guys were overrun in the 4th of July committee with the tasks. And we're just kind of wondering where that committee is now, especially as there's a thought of putting $27,000 up front to pay for the labor.
So how many of you have ever looked at the 4th of July Association contract that existed from 2019? Okay, so what did it actually say? It said that we were in charge of running the campground for the town, and then we would remit money back to the community in the way of a bed tax at $4 an item, or a bed, whatever you want to call it. We were also responsible for the $15,000 that the town would give to the community, or to the 4th of July Association, that we would run the family-friendly games and events at Memorial Park. And that the last bit was that it would be used to also help fund fireworks. So I sat in that chair for 4 years, where you all sit now. And I felt it was my fiduciary responsibility to not collect $15,000 from this community when there wasn't an event happening. So I didn't. So that's $45,000 that would have come to the association, that nobody would be here asking for anything. But because of COVID, I actually said, there's no way. Do not put in there that you should still give the association the money, because that's not being responsible. So that money, $15,000, funded the entire day of all events that took place within the community. It supported all of it. And in return, we ran the campgrounds. 2 different campgrounds. And those campgrounds, when the town did it, the town gave out of the ashes, 24,000 plus to run it at $10 a campsite. So we had Ron Heinbaugh on our committee, and Ron said, that's not the way you run a campground. He made each of the spaces $50. We increased the amount of spaces, and I think we remitted the bed tax, and we came out funding the entire next year without needing the town's money.
So I think all the things you've done in the past are totally great. And
that's the historic content that's missing out of a lot of what the discussion's been happening. It's only the 4th of July Association has only existed as an actual 501c3 since 2016. So it's not been this historic thing. It was a facilitator to help all of this come together because of what was happening, and everything was out of control. So we wanted to change the dynamic of the community, because we don't want 160 unaccompanied minors again up on the hillside and having a Flight for Life call for a 14-year-old who was so intoxicated he almost died. So that was the behind the scenes to all of this. How do we fund it? How do we make it viable? How do we help this whole community have this whole thing come together? What is the best showcase of a community other than something like the 4th of July? So what more can you ask for? This is a tradition that's been steeped in this community long before. I think Tyler's the only one that's in this room. Yeah, honestly, besides me, that has seen this his whole life. And so this is very steeped in tradition of what happens within the community. So if I would have collected those funds, we wouldn't be asking for more money. But now the dynamics have changed. So how do we as a community come together and figure out how to help fund this? I don't have my cash cow anymore with 20 volunteers. Ron Heinbach put in so much, he and Sharon, into the 4th of July. Unbelievable amounts of money and donated time. And he would give us his entire staff at Silverton Lakes to help run everything while he was here. So that's the historic content that everybody needs to really understand. We wouldn't be here asking as a joint venture with the fire department if I would have collected every year for the money that was intended in the budget to come to the 4th of July Association. So now we're at a different pass, right? COVID happened, okay, no event. That was 2020 was absolutely the worst day of business I think I had in the month of July. Was this July 4th, just pouring rain, just god awful. So, but the previous years when we didn't have fireworks, you were here for one, I have a picture of you. We had a street dance to help control and have the people still here that were here, still have that sense of community and showcase and how wonderful it was. Those street dances were phenomenal. I got more feedback off of the street dances in place of a drought year because we couldn't have fireworks. So if you go back and look at 2016 forward, the 4th of July Association was involved in all of this and helped facilitating all this because we had to change that dynamic. Do you remember, well, Tyler, you do, when USA Today said that the town of Silverton was in the top 10 in the United States of America, places to be on the 4th of July, because it was the quintessential kind of that Norman Rockwell feeling of your life is where you wanted to be on that kind of day. It gave you the sense of community. It gave you the sense of celebration from the parade to the fireworks. So that's a badge of honor that we wear really proudly in this community. Some of these guys have volunteered for almost 50 years on that fire department, helping facilitate this. So to see a tradition like this go because of lack of funding, I've got new board members that want to come on. We elected Mel from Elevated Coffee, if anybody knows her. She said, I want to be involved in that because we've been calling for board members for quite a while. But what we lost was that guy who would bring $10,000 without batting an eye and just give it to the association so we could help fund everything. So Jim helped pay for a lot too. Between Jim and I and Ron Heinbach, we funded the entire first year of fireworks after we changed this. So it's not about losing the 4th of July Association. It's about keeping a tradition that has defined this community and showcased us as a community for at least the last, oh God, probably the last 45 years. So that's really what this is about. So the ask is only an additional, what, approximately 19,000, of which, like I said, if I would have been an irresponsible contract holder and been irresponsible sitting in that chair, I would have demanded to take my money that was coming to that association as the president, because it was contractual that we were supposed to be paid. But I chose not to do it because it was in the best interest of the community, especially during COVID. We didn't have money coming in. Why would we want to spend it on something that we weren't even going to have? So right now we're trying to do something different. We're trying to make sure that the town helps pay for a showcase that showcases this community. And you saw it in Gloria's memo that the 4th of July Association would raise money then to help the fire department. So we would raise the money for the boxes, the ignition wires, and support the guys, one of which is my husband. I know how much time it took for him to not be at our business to help wire that show in. This is not the way we used to do it. You're not going over there. Ask them if it was fun. They used to throw the thing in, they'd go in with a flare and they'd light it up and then it would go. But we'd had too many accidents that way. You've got a person that's missing fingers. We've got, Fred Fashing was hit in the face through his helmet and his bunker gear. So the old way is gone. What Jerry has come up with his expertise, was the ignitions and the wiring, because that's what he used to do. So having that come on board was phenomenal, and we've reduced the risk. That last show, this 4th of July, even Snowscape, proved how absolutely amazing these guys are at putting their mind to something, learning it all on the fly. How much did Snowscape take? It took ridiculous amount of hours.
We spent about 3 days
Mhm.
until the show. Just be trainers.
Yeah,
Granted, it was a new system. We're training at the same time.
yeah. But that's what a professional company does. These are a bunch of volunteers that live in our community that we see on a daily basis. These are our neighbors and our friends that volunteer their time to do this. So I think they should get paid. So we would have a memorandum of understanding with the fire department that we would raise the extra funds to help pay for the rest of what they need. And we've got lots of fundraising avenues that we've done before. We can do them again. When it came to this year, not knowing what was going to be happening, because Chief Archuleta had told me unequivocally back in 2016, he was going to retire soon. And soon was this year. And that's when he elected Jerry, Clark, Fred, I think you guys are the three, to take over his position. So when you go back and look, town of Silverton, just like they spent the money for Out of the Ashes, 24,000 plus, we also spent almost 64,000 plus the time and effort that Public Works had to put in to create the fireworks show, which was probably the worst thing we've ever seen in this community. Went off by the cemetery, and it was a wired show. It was a professional show that we paid oodles and gobs of money out of the town budget to figure out how to do this. And it was nothing, absolutely nothing like what a bunch of volunteer guys can do. And now they're trying to do the same quality of show that a professional level would do. And I feel that it is our responsibility to continue this. And I'm sorry, I think the town bucks idea is absolutely wonderful. But if you've got a town of 650 people and you only had 97 show up, because I had asked if I could vote by proxy for my mom and dad, because my mom can't even get up the stairs here to do for town. And Nathan said, no, that was not the way it was going to work. It had to be individual persons. So you're not getting all of the votes. Because my parents are 100% for it because they love it. They love to sit on the porch on the 4th of July and watch the fireworks. They love the entire day. My dad's participated in the parade since 1976. So there's a lot of historic content that, not living here, you might have heard of it, but you didn't experience it. It wasn't part of your life. And it really is a part of this community. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood what we were looking at, because the 4th of July Association is not historical. The fireworks are. The volunteer firemen doing it. We just filled a need and helped to facilitate. And we would like to continue to do that. Gigi Raines also volunteered, Kelly Freeze. So Nathan, now that he's the events coordinator, has already been elected as a member at large on the board. So it's coming back around, but the financial contributions of just one couple is gone. And that's what's crippling, is the money. And so what is the best course of action? Gloria has some absolutely amazing, staff, everybody has come up with some great, what do you want to call them? Bullet points in the memo that you received. So whatever the choice is, by funding it, you're continuing a tradition that showcases this community at its utmost, at its peak. That day is absolutely amazing. 74,000 hits we had for a tiny little blurb that we put in on our Facebook page. And people all over said, well, we didn't even know it was happening. Well, 74,000 people did. So our outreach in this community for the month of July, that's when we all make our money. So to see it go would, just like a lot of other things, it'd be a hard pill to swallow, and it would be very detrimental. at first. Everything has a way of recycling around and recovering, but you'd be looking at, once again, 5 to 7 years for everything to come back around to even get close to the peak levels of business that we do on the week of the 4th. So.
Yeah, so I think I did get a lot of information out of that. Thank you. I think the main question you did answer is you do have one more, you have someone else now on your board, and there's more people who want to join your board as well. It's my understanding that on May 23rd, when you came to talk to us, you didn't have that volunteer staff anymore. You needed help, and that group was fizzling, for lack of a better word. I'm glad it's not. That's awesome. And we were just, I'm just trying to understand when I'm reading this proposal about how that group is then going to help facilitate the labor that the firefighters put in, which I'm not anti-fireworks, and I'm definitely all about supporting the volunteers of this community as a big member of SAR here. It's just a question of like, if that group was still going to then pay $26,000 or whatever, I just want to make sure that group was still in existence.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the question that
whole thing. When I came here, I was trying to make sure that this board understood that to run camping, Jim and I couldn't do it ourselves, just the two of us. Like I said, when Ron left, 20 volunteers left with him. So, and then for us to try to get the thing at the park, which was going to be $11,000 this year. When we started, it was $5,500. And then to pay for fireworks. So we'd already had the money in the bag, thank God, for the fireworks, because we'd raised it before. But then we have nothing left right now. I've got maybe, I don't know, $5,500, but that pays for the ignition wires to start. That buys the 2 new boxes. If the town commits to the extra 19,000 that's above and beyond what was in the budget for this year and goes back and remembers, I could have had this $45,000 if I would have taken it. Not me personally. I shouldn't say me. We as an entity.
Well, wait, and I want to
Very misspoken.
really quickly, because in the contract, it's an agreement to execute the events and to pay the amount. So if the events don't happen, the amount in the contract doesn't get paid. So
It was not,
clarification.
it's not, no. If you go back and read the original contract,
Reading it, Molly, that's how
second contract, you're reading the second contract.
one that we most recently.
Yes, that was the one when I was sitting in that chair. I'm the one who demanded that go in there because I felt, because of what had happened with the ski touring money, I felt it was wrong to give money to an event that wasn't taking place. And I was very, very adamant about it. And I love ski touring, don't get me wrong, but I felt that $5,000 to go to a documentary that I don't even know if we've ever even seen yet. I mean, I know board members have seen it because we received it, but that bothered me sitting in that chair because that's the responsibility of the board, is to make sure that we're spending money properly. And so that second contract, because the original one from 2019 doesn't say that.
Thanks for.
So I rewrote it with John Ryder and Paul Kosnick to make sure that it did.
Thank you. Nathan had his hand up.
I do just want to clarify, the options presented before you, there are 2, immediate and long-term. The immediate is to purchase the fireworks, issue the RFP or no action, but if you do purchase the fireworks with the additional 19,000 added to that budget line, those fireworks, if we don't have them next year due to fire danger, drought, etc., can carry over to following years. So this would ensure future years if that was the route you went. And the long-term options we can continue to work on if it needs more clarification.
Thank you.
Here's my biggest hang up is just what if the labor costs don't, that money doesn't get raised, that amount? Is that, who's on the hook for it?
The 4th of July Association would be, because it would be an MOU between the 4th of July Association and the fire department.
And I guess who are the current members of the 4th of July Association? Since we.
Kelly Freeze volunteered, Gigi Rains, Melanie Barger, and myself and Jim Harper. And then Nathan is a member at large.
So we're back to like a full board or
Mhm.
consider a full board.
Mhm. And just like ski touring, we have a whole entire list of people that we go to raise funds. And some of them you would have never even think of. They're out of the way obscure clubs from Cortez because they enjoy coming here every year. We've got a group of people that volunteer when they know we're having fireworks to help clean up the hillside that don't live in this community. Most of them live in Montrose and Ouray. So there's a lot of outreach that can happen, but we had no idea where this was going after this year when Chief Archuleta said, okay, I am retiring. So that had to all be worked out with the fire department, which was finished. And we had an after action meeting. That's how all this all came out to be. So we had an after 4th of July action meeting to discuss pros and cons, how amazing and we sat right here in this room and we did it all. And then that's when everything was like, well, hey, this is how we're going to have to proceed forward. So, and I had said, what involvement would the town be versus the 4th of July Association and the fire department? And that's how we came up to that whole entire conclusion that Gloria, Nathan, Jerry and I had a meeting about. So, and it was after the action, the post-action report from the 4th. So needing to facilitate conversation with the board, that's Gloria's job. Like, hey, here we go. This is what we got to do now. You know, this is how this all works. And so I think she's done quite well. Unfortunately, the memo came out before the packet, which we've had a discussion about. Because the memo laid it out beautifully about what our plans were for the future if this board decides to take on what's being asked. So Nathan's right. You've got an immediate and you've got a long term. So it's up to the board. Any other discussion? Sorry, I sat there for too long. I'm gonna keep going. No, I'm kidding. Can we take a roll call, please, now? Okay.
One of my concerns is we're being asked for $19,000 more this year for fireworks. That's correct.
Mhm.
What happens next year when we're asked for another $19,000 on top of this $34,000? And then the year after that, when it's another $25,000 because prices have gone up. At what point do we say we can't spend, $80,000 on a fireworks show? Or do we just need to continue to be prepared to shell out? And especially, I don't like the time frame at all. I mean, we have a month to think about this. And I understand that because of, the supply chain issues and shortages and things, it makes it really difficult to plan ahead. But I would really not like to see this. Like if this became a yearly thing, I would vote no today. Like if we need there needs to be some sort of cap, there needs to be some sort of better line item for we have no idea what we're getting for this. And I understand that since the fire department's done such a fantastic job for the last 40 years, that to a certain point, we absolutely can trust them. But what happens if there is a big turnover and all those guys are gone and we're writing them checks for, $40,000, but we don't know who's running it and what we're going to get for it. So then Jerry's here at that time.
It's not a question that I can answer because I'm not on the fire department.
But we're talking about financial responsibility and it's not responsible to, I think, just say, well, you've done a good job, so here's more money. That's my 2 cents.
And like I said, that's not something I can answer. I'm not on the fire department. I'm not in that hierarchy of what happens in that location. But we've known that Chief was going to retire. He announced it back in 2016 that he was, pretty soon I'm going to be done. I'm getting old. So, yeah. So I don't know if Jerry can answer that question any better than I can.
I would assume if there was an increase in budget, that would have to come back to the board. I don't think it's just
perpetual that you just automatically fund fireworks regardless of the cost.
Do we have any other like historical data of like the frequency of us being able to host a fireworks show? So we have 2015 through 2012. And then if we just take the chunk from when the 4th of July Association took over, we're at 50%. And I know it's probably higher than that because COVID and the wonky couple of years right there. But I'd just be curious as to like the frequency that we're able to have a show, whether it's about 60% or if it's higher than that.
In my lifetime, I can maybe remember possibly only about, I don't know. When I was a kid, none.
Data, not just like.
None. I can remember maybe a total of 6, 7 times prior to COVID that the cancellation ever happened in about 50 years. Well, about 45 years. So the financial and historical data would have to exist someplace.
I feel like there's a couple things going on here, and I've thought about this issue a lot. It's been a hot topic, no pun intended, in my household. And I think, you know, Molly and I had a good conversation just talking about the history and where this has come from. And I chatted with a couple of the fire department folks, and we've heard a lot of people giving feedback by email with varying perspectives. And it seemed like there's some common things we can agree on. There are some people in the town that might say $0 should be spent on fireworks. It scares the birds. And some people might say we should blow it all up because we want to be back on USA Today's list. And there's a whole range of opinions in the middle. Probably range of opinions on the fire department, range of opinions on the board, range of opinions in town. And I keep coming back to my perspective, which is I'm not sure I, as being on the town board, think it's our responsibility to decide the scope and scale of the fireworks show. I'm thinking of our contracts with other entities, and I appreciate, Molly, your level of transparency and accountability that you've brought to this seat. I know before I was on the board, you and I sat at Elevated Coffee and I asked your advice and you said, manage the budget, demand transparency and accountability, pay attention, know your stuff, even if your staff, you know, don't always ask your staff for all the information.
Word for word.
So I appreciated that feedback and I appreciate your clarification on the contract. And I'm thinking, I keep coming back to how we manage summer sounds. We don't tell them which bands to hire, how expensive the bands to hire, who should be their headliner, what beer they should serve. We don't tell them what they should do. We just say, this is the budget we have for you to put on X events. You were in charge of filling in the gap of the biggest event you want to have or the smallest event, however you want to do it. And I'm not sure how we get there, but I would really like to see the town out of the position of deciding scope and scale of this show. And if it's really, we've heard the passion from the 4th of July Association. I've talked to some of the fire department guys and hearing the source of pride that it is, right? That it's really important. And so I would like to find ways where we can find a budget framework where the town is not in this position where we're deciding scope and scale, and that the folks that are really passionate about it, that have the fundraisers' ears or funders' ears, can decide the scope and scale of the budget. And so there's a couple options here. I mean, the town could say, look, we're willing to double the budget to $30,000 for fireworks, or we're willing to go up to 25,000 or something. And it's up to the fire department and the 4th of July Association to decide on scope and scale. I was also intrigued by this idea in the packet, which was, and it's something I heard from some of the fire department guys, right? That there's this desire to really for our town to respect and appreciate our volunteers. There's a lot that goes into it and a lot that's demanded of them. And maybe this whole conversation is a signifier of something bigger. So I'm going to tell a story for a minute. When I was pregnant, I was having a total meltdown about something and I was just bawling. And my husband came up to me, he's like, what is going on? I was making lasagna and he's like, the lasagna, what is it? It's not, what is going on with you? Why are you freaking out about the lasagna? And I was like, it's not about the lasagna. And so I use that as an example to say, maybe this whole discussion is not really about the fireworks. It's really about, is our budget for our fire department appropriate for what we're asking them to do? And that conversation probably should happen as part of the budget process. But this might not really be about the fireworks. And so this proposal in here where it's presented that maybe we just say, we are going to increase the fire department's budget, and it's really up to them and their members to say what they need that budget for. And that budget could be for a certain number of minute fireworks show. It could be for training and equipment. It could be for recruitment and retention of new members as some are retiring, but it's a show of support for the volunteers in our community and our fire department. And it really may not be about the fireworks. And so I don't know if that's something that we could propose for the near term because it's out of the budget cycle, right? Entities don't typically come to us and ask for a budget request in this way because they're asking for an actual item. But I think to summarize the 2 points that I would like to see come out of this is the town not being in the position of deciding scope and scale. And the town, we as a board having a budget that we feel is comfortable and appropriate for what we want to spend, whether it's on fireworks or to the fire department as a whole. And I kind of like the idea of letting the fire department decide. I don't really feel in a position to decide, you should buy $20,000 of fireworks or $50,000 of fireworks, or you should do a 20-minute show or a 7-minute show. So that's kind of my preference, getting out of this position. Then it's really up for, the 4th of July Association and the fire department in their good partnership to partner for what the event should look like. So I don't know quite how we get there, but those are my 2 preferences.
And I think
deciding open scale and demonstrating, at least from what I heard, the support that we have for our fire department.
Yeah, but then it would be in that respect, then it would be up to the individuals there to say, okay, we can get, 19 and a half minutes out of this. And if we go with this product and so on. And so, we had a very similar discussion and I said, yeah, I completely agree, because then you're taking yourself out of it, but you're still figuring out how the municipality continues to showcase and fund the community. Because honestly, you go anywhere else, pretty much outside of this area, and municipalities fund their own celebrations. So this is, us and Uray are probably the 2 more anomalies where we rely on donations, volunteerism. You got the short chair, I just noticed. Sorry, Todd. Where we use that to the nth degree, because we've never had enough money. We've never had enough people. We've never had enough time. Even back when the mine was open, we were always a bit short on volunteers because everybody had, good paying jobs and it was so much easier not to volunteer. So yeah, good volunteers, a horrible thing to waste. So I agree with Dana. We had this discussion. I think it's actually a wonderful idea. And then, like you said, then the rest of it would be coming between the 2 of us, just like it was before. Before the 4th of July Association even existed, the fire department did this on their own. How many women sold T-shirts in that parade to help fund us for 30 years? So, yeah.
Well, and if it's part of the fire department budget, we expect our typical accountability and transparency in the budgeting process. It's taxpayer dollars, but I think that brings some level of removing the town from deciding scope and scale and puts it with the folks that really care and have strong opinions and want to make it happen.
I think you brought up a pretty good idea. Seems like one to consider for the future. I guess I just had one other follow-up question of, maybe this is more directed to the fire department, but is there a direct correlation between labor costs and the cost of fireworks, or is the labor more based on setting up igniters and modules?
Well, it's obviously, if you make the show smaller, obviously your labor costs go down some. There's still a tremendous amount of labor. You're talking about, hundreds of thousands of tubes that you have to go get, bring to the site, inspect them, carry them. It would reduce it some, but it's not going to change. Our biggest issue now is just getting those volunteers. Getting when we say 1,000 hours, I mean, the majority of that is spread over about 6, 8 guys. The younger guys don't have that option of just saying, I can't be there from Monday to Friday because we're doing 4th of July. They have employees,
Or they are
or
the
they are
employer.
the employees.
Yeah.
They can leave, Robert can leave, Roy.
Roy.
Those guys
Harry,
can do
yeah.
it. To be able to get those other guys, you need to be able to compensate them. They can't just take off work and am I going to feed my kids this week or am I going to set up 4th of July? Yes.
What happens if that fundraising isn't successful? So let's say, the funds come together to buy the fireworks or to commit to buying the fireworks in October. And then, it just falls flat and there are no monies after that. Like what happens? Do you guys not?
That would be between us.
Yeah.
But this,
That would take the town out. The fireworks we would force Molly to come up with money.
Well, yeah, because if we created an MOU, just like you guys would create an MOU, or put it as, like Dana's proposing, a budgetary line item, then everybody is contractually held in some way. So it's not like we're gonna just go, you know what, you got those fireworks, we'll see ya. No, nobody's checking out. The whole point was to save this, but not knowing how to do it with, I can produce the list if I want to see how many people volunteered originally. So we had probably close to 150 people in this room when that first discussion took place. And I probably have a list of 40 people that volunteered, which probably only about 8 or 9 still in this community from when it happened in 2016. So that tells you the rate of turnover in the community as well. So, whether or not it's in perpetuity, it'll come back to the board if it's not in perpetuity. If the line item has to be taken out and the budget gets reduced because we've run out of volunteers, because like you said, a good volunteer is a horrible thing to waste, then so be it. But for the immediate future, is 2023 going to hold fireworks if it's accommodatable with, the weather gods? That's what we need to get to right now, because I'm not worried about the fundraising. I'm worried that I can call Ron, be like, hey man, you want to go? Other than the fact he's semi-retired and got some health issues. I'm sure he would say, you know what? I love it. Maybe I'll be up this year. Because he was a great go-to for everything. And health reasons and selling, he had to do what's best for him. But Tim, I can always go to the train and be like, Mr. Harper, ow, buddy, because we did it before. And between the Grand Imperial and the train, they gave us $10,000 that very first year as well. Ron gave $10,000. I put in 7. I'm not as well as the rest of them, just saying. But we made it happen. And that was just with 3 people. So would you throw in when we do the mailings? We usually gain about an extra $10,000 from local community members. And this year we created a QR code, but we didn't have anywhere to mail it because we didn't know. I mean, Gloria was in on all those discussions. What are we doing? Yeah. So the mailer always nets really good. And the QR code that's on all of the mailers now can be released whenever. There's people that come up from all over the world to see this.
especially the United States. Those J1 visa workers, I tell you what, I've never seen faces light up like that in my life. All the Turkish kids that were and Italians, and then the few that I have, just ear to ear, they have never seen a display like that in their lives. So, yeah, they said it was the most amazing thing they've ever seen. Yeah, we were all standing in the alley by the post office.
Gary, do you have your hand up?
I was just touching back on yours. Let's say Molly falls short, she raises $19,000. I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for the entire department. I know members that share the same belief. If it came down to it, I would donate my time. We would shoot the show is basically where I'm at. I have faith that they can raise the money. I think if we have everything in place, we can probably raise more than we need and be ahead for next year. But the show would go on. There's enough guys that have that passion that would donate whatever, maybe they only get paid a certain portion of their time. But, if the budget is there to buy the fire, show will go on.
So something that,
I had something.
oh, sorry, Sally, go ahead.
No, no, I was just gonna maybe hop in here because it's almost 1 a.m. where I am, and I don't want to lose all my brain cells at this point. But I think something that makes this request really challenging for a trustee is that being in the trustee seat, as Molly has alluded to, we're responsible for spending taxpayer money and spending it responsibly. And so kind of regardless of our feelings about fireworks or no fireworks or duration or scope or scale or, our passion or not passion for fireworks, I think that the challenge for me is that the timing of this request is sort of out of our typical framework and processes for funding community organizations. And so I think the timing is difficult. We have budgeted in this budget $15,000 for fireworks. It turns out that's not enough. Unfortunately, it would be great if it was, but it's not. And so now there's a situation where there's a deficit, and to have fireworks, it sounds like there's a need for more money, but we don't have that currently budgeted. So in a sense, this is sort of an exception to our standard budgeting process to make the request at this time. And I realize that that's sort of forced by the October 1st deadline and purchasing the product, but it's just a really short timeline outside of our budgeting process for an amount that's significantly enough above what it was previously that we need to, be really carefully consider that request. And then some of the options that sort of align with the increase of budget request really fall on this kind of good faith with the 4th of July Association to raise a significant amount of additional funds, which is great. I agree with Jerry. I think there's so much passion and enthusiasm in the community for this that it's, very likely that funding can be there. And it certainly has been there in the past, but we don't have a contract with the association, with the 4th of July committee. We don't have an MOU currently drafted. We haven't discussed this, we don't have something kind of even a working document with Clayton. That would be something that I'd kind of want to see, I think, to understand just the nuts and bolts of how this is going to work. If we're spending taxpayer dollars, and especially if we're spending significantly more taxpayer dollars. And then I really agree with Dana. I love the idea of just letting the experts kind of run this show and, determine the scope and scale of the show and be in charge of that budget with more agency than, as a part of the fire department budget. And then I think I support the idea there too, because I've mentioned this in a previous meeting, I think, but I think then it sort of takes the town off the hook as well, not just for determining scope and scale, but also, you know, if the fireworks show can't go off because of whatever reason, then we know that that money can be reinvested in an organization that the town really supports and wants to see thrive. And so, so then if fireworks don't go, maybe there's a benefit to the fire department itself. And that sounds, you know, that sounds like a reasonable compromise to me. Back to the beginning in the timing of all of this, because it just seems like we have a lot of nuts and bolts to work out of like how this works. And, you know, we have the budgeting season is upon us, and, you know, that option E to increase the fireworks department budget, I think solves the scope and scale problem. And it gives the fire department the opportunity to use that funding for the organization. But I noticed that it's not an immediate solution. It's a long-term solution. And I know that what we're going for right now is immediate solutions. But I will just say that I kind of get stuck in just looking for like some of the things that we would need as responsible trustees who are spending taxpayer dollars. You know, we just need some of those things in place to be able to go in any direction, regardless of how we, you know, what our emotional or our personal passions are for this event.
Can I ask a procedural question? I realize that the long-term solution of potentially increasing the fire department budget as a whole, irrespective of fireworks, is under a long-term solution. Does that mean it isn't possible to say, instead of adding a line item in addition to what we already have for fireworks? I guess I'm asking, if we're talking about a total amount of 34,000 in this budget, we have to add 15,000 to what we've already appropriated for fireworks, or 19. Can we, in our budget, move that line item to the fire department's budget, or does it have to be a long-term solution for the next budgeting cycle?
Oh, like to give them the 15 and the 19 right
as
now.
A general budget item for fire department
This year.
Yes, it's possible.
Yes, that is possible.
Or we can add money or not add money to the fireworks budget. Those are options.
Right.
Thank you.
Did I get all that? I think I understand.
I don't think I phrased that question. I'm sorry.
Yes, I have a question and then kind of an idea that's built on some of the stuff that Dana's brought up, but is there a reason that we delineated these certain costs to like the 4th of July Association versus the town? Just because it seems like it would be more beneficial for me that the town would take on the labor costs, because that's more of a constant. And that would be more of like an $11,000 increase. And then the fundraising would just be done of like, well, that's the size and scope of our fireworks, is how much money we can raise. And if you guys do like an amazing job raising funds, you know, we already know what the labor cost is for those fireworks. And if you make more than that, put it towards next year. If you make less than that, then you can adjust the labor costs. And then the town knows that we're not paying more than the additional 11,500, but it could potentially be less if the fundraising doesn't go so well. But it'd still like be a fireworks show. And then the fundraising would determine the scope and scale. And you could still order the fireworks on time. And then that would just be an understanding between the 4th of July Association and the fire department.
But we would still have to increase the budget this year, 19,000, in order to pay for that 34,000 fireworks. And I think that's why we presented it that way.
Well, I was saying,
But I like your creative thinking there.
like if the town didn't pay for the fireworks, so the 4th of July Association paid, and the town took on the labor costs, rather than the way that it's.
Right, and I think that that's definitely more of a long-term solution, just because I know that the Fourth of July Association doesn't have those funds right now to pay for the fireworks. And that's why they took on the labor, because they could have more time to kind of get that money.
That is correct. And you guys all have to remember that this conversation was started like the second week of July. But because this had to do with budgets and everything else, and budgets from the fire department and what that whole scope and scale was gonna look like, it took a while to get to. And that's just the way government works. It works at a glacial pace, as you all found out, sitting in those chairs. So it's not like the conversation we had started quite a while ago about what would come down the line. It's just where we're at.
I'm hung up on a couple of procedural things. And I think there's a few options here that we can't even ethically consider. I think that in order to grant any funding to the Fourth of July Association, we would have to have had the contract in front of us tonight in the packet, notice to the public, to be reinstated.
You're not granting.
This isn't a conversation, this is my comment. I think similarly, to increase the budget, we also would need to have some type of piece of paper in front of us detailing who's responsible for what we get for it. The only piece of paper we have is the budget proposal from the fire department, which I do think is sufficient in terms of saying, like, we would like you to pay for this specific good. The problem with that is that we also probably needed that MOU or contract with the fire department saying they're going to perform. I know you just said it verbally, but they're going to perform even if the rest of the funds aren't raised. And so from a process perspective, like we're accountable to everybody in the community, not just the people that voted for us, or the people asking for the budget. Like, there are going to be people upset no matter what way this decision goes. And if we were to fund this, like, I don't think we're being responsible by granting these funds without that contract proposed, vetted, and a guarantee or contingencies in place in writing that Clayton has looked at and approved to say, yeah, this is a responsible spending of dollars. Because it's the fire department, we're all having this discussion because it's an exception to the norm, and they show up and they are a major part of our community that supports us. And they're super important. But under any other circumstances, I don't even think we'd be having this conversation. And so I'm hung up on that. I think Dana's idea to push the line item over to a general increase in fire department budget is probably the only option that's presented that we could consider, because that's an organization we currently have contracts with that is accountable to us for how they spend their budget. And I think we could consider that, from my opinion. And I'm not telling you guys what we can and can't consider from your perspective. From my perspective, like, I can't even think about saying yes to anything other than an increase in fire department budget, because we just don't have a contract in place. And there's nothing saying like this will actually happen. And if it doesn't happen, we have no recourse that I can.
Yeah, because it's gone to their general budget and it hasn't gone to fireworks. So even if we did put it in that other budget, they could spend it as they saw fit.
Or they could put it in their pension, they could spend it on fireworks, they could do whatever they want with it. And that would still, I think, meet our obligations as a town in terms of how we spend and being accountable to everybody else in town. Anything else here, I think, we needed documents proposed tonight, and we don't have them. And we did ask for them at the last meeting. And so I think that kind of limited from my perspective, what our options are tonight. Jim?
Hey, thank you so much. This is a tough one. and you're right, there's always gonna be hurt feelings, there's always gonna be somebody who feels like maybe their opinion wasn't heard, maybe they weren't loud enough. I think John F. Kennedy said it right when he said you can give a man a gold bar and he'll still feel like there's something wrong with it. This is a difficult one for all of us. I, for one, do not think that the town of Silverton and any one of us trustees needs to be the middleman in any discussions with regards to site, scope, location, any of that stuff. 4th of July Association and what they bring to the table and their ability to raise money, their inability to raise money, going with a certain plan allows us, it allows us to step back and free us up and say, look, we did our part as a community, we did our part as trustees, we did our part as the town of Silverton to back a great event, to back a great group of men. And beyond that, it is up to you guys to carry the water from there. This has been an extremely stressful process for a lot of people. But I think the right way to go, the best way to go, is to get us out of the firework business. If this becomes a line item, the fire department, they need to figure out what that line item looks like. And we need to step back and it just becomes, that's it. X amount of dollars, if that. The comment that was made earlier about the fluctuation, I think it was Jordan, it was a great comment. Fluctuation of prices of the goods and services. Look, your product goes up, it goes down, left, right, doesn't matter. We're funding this, and that is it. And if it goes above, that's up to you to come up with that dollar amount. If you want to keep it a certain way, then that's great. We've done our part as a community. We've done our part as trustees. We've done our part as the town of Silverton. Now it's everyone else's part to pitch in and carry the water. That's my 2 cents right now. Thank you.
I think one piece I wanted to add about this concept of increasing the line item for the fire department budget as a whole. I think one appeal it had to me is that, in all transparency, I got a lot of feedback that said, we don't think we as a town should spend that amount of money on firework product. There were a significant number of people who mentioned that to me or who wrote to us as trustees. And by putting it into the fire department budget, it allows that group of guys to decide value to the community and value to each other and to that entity. And so it allows them to say, we think this much for fireworks, but we also want to spend this much on X training that we've talked about, or a certain amount of resources or equipment or something like that. And so in my mind, it helps to contribute to this idea of overall value to the community. And so kind of potentially extends the value of those dollars to the community for those who express the opinion that they didn't feel like they wanted our community to spend all of that money on fireworks. Now, again, everyone decided that's the product they wanted to purchase, that if we added it to the general line item, that would be their prerogative to decide and direct. But I think if they decided that wasn't the full cost that they wanted to spend on it, it potentially brings additional value to community members that didn't want to spend that entire amount on fireworks.
And just to add some context here, in 2022, in 2022, we budgeted 41,900 for the fire department with $15,000 for pension, and that's totaling 56,900.
Thank you. I think I would struggle if we got an additional request in October as part of the budgeting process that had additional significant increases to the fire department budget. That would be challenging.
Or I think if we were doing everything like by the book, like in best case scenario, this conversation right now would relate to 2024 fireworks, not 2023. We would be considering, like the $15,000 existing line item is rolling over to the fire department budget, and that in a week when we have the, meeting with the chief and everybody that represents them for the 2023 budget, they would be asking us for the 2024 increase to cover these things. And this is still, even this solution, which I do think we can consider based on my last comment, is still kind of an exception to a best case scenario.
Oh, Jim has his hand up.
Jim?
Thank you. As of last Monday, when we had our finance subcommittee and went over the budget, sheriff's office and the fire department have not turned in their budget request, correct?
Correct.
Is that still where that stands?
They are invited to the work session on the 3rd or the 5th. Is it the 3rd?
I say the wrong day.
3rd.
It's on Monday, the 3rd at 5 o'clock to present their budgets.
Thank you.
Well, we've kind of tossed this one around for 3 meetings. We have to make a decision.
And sorry, my hands raised.
Yeah, go ahead.
The time frame, and I guess this is a question for Nathan, Jerry, who's in the audience. The offer is still on the table, correct, until October 1st regarding the 10% discount. Is that correct?
That's not for the discount. That's their hard line, just to ensure.
So we lost the ability for the discount.
No, the discount's included. They're giving the discount based upon us being a fire department, not based on the timeline.
We would keep the discount regardless, but the deadline to purchase them for 2023 is October 1st.
Thank you.
Can you say with certainty that if the town, I'm just curious, if the town just gave discretionary funds to the fire department directly and said, you don't have to spend these on fireworks, are you definitely going forward with the budget proposed this year, or would you guys have a meeting and discuss it?
I can't answer that.
You can't speak for 30 people?
Yeah, I mean, full support of the fire department, full support of increasing their budget. I agree that the last meeting, and that's kind of where it started with trying to find out where the committee was like, I kind of expected a little bit more of a contract of sorts if we were gonna increase these funds, so.
But it would be with the fire department.
See, that's where I'm confused, Molly, is it goes back to like, if you can't, like, and I know that, and Jerry also said, it's like, if you can't come up with funds, and Jerry says the show goes on, and I totally believe him that that's the case. But it's just like, it's to do things the right way. I feel like we need to have, like, that all needs to be in writing.
Yeah, and Gloria, Jerry, and Nathan and I will discuss having MOUs. I had no idea what would be on the plate for this meeting, because that is not something that I draft. That was a discussion, because that would be the proper way to proceed forward, because you've got one entity that is a quasi-governmental entity, and I don't believe you can have an additional contract beyond the budget line items, because that's the way the government process works. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's why Gloria came up with the idea of the memorandum of understanding, and it would be contractual between the 4th of July Association and the fire department, and then the fire department and the town of Silverton. But you guys had to get through this process to figure out whether or not the funds would be coming for us to create all of that, because it would not go back into a contract with the 4th of July Association, because this is a direct ask through a budgetary line item that would not be contractual for 501c3, but a quasi-judicial, government agency. So I have no extra content to give because it doesn't exist yet. The MOUs would be written by, I'm assuming, Gloria and Clayton for this whole entire process. If the immediate ask is then made to move forward.
Is there any reason that the 4th of July committee or association hasn't done any fundraising up to this point?
Because there's, whether or not we're going to continue to have fireworks in the community. We paid and bought and paid for those fireworks that were let off this year, 2 years ago, in 2019. So there's been no fundraising during COVID because there was not an event. There was no fundraising.
That's like 3 months, like leading up to this. I just feel like we've been putting really between a rock and a hard place.
Question when we went to our pre-4th of July fireworks meeting. Tyler was there with us, Chief Letter. And we didn't know what the status was going to be for the future. So the flyer was ready, but we didn't have an answer. So we had a post-action report meeting, and that's how we came up to the point that we're at. So fundraising isn't the difficult. Todd knows, Nathan knows. I mean, we raised what, an extra 5,000 or 6,000? No, more than that. Procedure that first year when you were on board, we raised probably close to 10 grand in probably 2.5 hours. So that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is how are we going to proceed forward? Is this going to be something that the town starts taking on to help fund everything? Because previous years we did not have to pay the fire department. They lit them by hand. They threw some tubes out there and stuck a flare on it. I honestly thought it was the biggest light. So we're changing the dynamic of the show to make our community and our men safe.
And I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you on that. Would the 4th of July committee be comfortable raising the money if the town weren't willing to spend extra money?
It's no, that's not enough time. That's not enough time. Because I haven't gotten the 15,000, I shouldn't say the 501c3 didn't receive the 15,000 for the last couple of years. That's
talking like big picture, not like buying fireworks on October 1st.
Yeah, how am I gonna get 15,000? If you guys want to give the 15,000 to the 4th of July Association, then we're only a few thousand short.
Right, I don't think you understand the question I'm trying to ask, but that's okay. We're
You're
good.
trying to say if the town doesn't fund it, the 4th of July Association gonna continue to fund it. There's not enough time to raise that much money in 4 or 5 days.
I know, I wasn't asking about that. That's good. Don't worry about it.
It seems like I hear that there's a lot of discomfort on the board about committing to spend funds for a product without more formal agreements in place. It seems to be a common theme I've heard from a lot of folks up here. And so I guess I'm just wondering, are we in a more comfortable place to make a motion to increase the fire department's line item budget for the $34,000 to be spent at their discretion with our normal accounting and budgetary like accountability processes in place. Can we make a motion to increase the SSJFRA's line item budget to $34,000 annually? Like, it's listed under long-term, but is that possible? Because it sounds like it's just a non-starter here with the board not having formal agreements in place. And as Shane said, it seems very tricky for us to write a check for a product that we believe, because of the folks sitting here, will be lit off and displayed if the fire danger so allows, but that we don't have a formal agreement for our community. So we seem stuck on that.
Or can we vote on it contingent on signing an MOU and saying this money will be used for fireworks?
That'd have to happen in the next 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And yes.
Okay, and then.
And vote on that. Go ahead, Sally.
I was gonna ask, on Dana's other question, Gloria, if you can clarify this one too. She said, you know, can we make a motion tonight? I'm wondering, as a matter of process, if that's something that we put in the work session on Monday, if we discuss the budget shift, if it looks like we want to fund the fire department at an increased rate, is that something that we do tonight, or do we do that as a part of a budget work session?
I mean, that's something we can discuss at the budget work session, but we can't make a formal decision. And then the other part of that would have to be appropriating that line item that's already at the 15,000 to the fire department as well. But in the work session, I get direction on kind of where you want the budget to go, and then I do the first draft to you all on the 10th. So that's kind of the sequence of events there. And then it would go into that first draft for you all to approve the first draft, and then it would be written into the 2023 budget.
Noting
Still
that if we go that route, there's no funding for fireworks this coming July 4th, we'd skip a year, assuming that it got appropriated in the future, because unless we give the green light tonight to write a check to somebody in the amount of $34,000, no fireworks are getting purchased for July 4th, 2023.
Is there anybody else out there that can help us, Jerry? Any other vendor or proposal or anything? I mean.
You have 4 days.
Yeah.
No.
That's why we're in the hot seats, guys. We got to make a decision.
I know. I just think this is it's a really difficult amount. It's a really difficult decision to make, because for me, and I know Dana's just said the same thing, but I think because to approve $34,000 for fireworks with no contractual agreement for the remainder of the funding that makes the fireworks show work, I keep trying to come up with like some kind of comparison. I feel like we're going into a rental car shop or something, and we're like, hey, I didn't know that I was going to need to rent a car, but now I need to rent the car, and I forgot my driver's license, and you know, I forgot my wallet, and I don't have all the things I need to rent the car. We have two parties that very much want to do business with each other. We have a rental car service that wants to rent a car. And we have someone who needs to rent a car, but we just don't have all of the documentation in place to make that transaction successful. And that's where I'm stuck. And I think for tonight, I do not support approving an increase in the budget for fireworks of $19,000.
What about an increase to the fire department's line item budget of $19,000? Maybe I'm the only one that feels like this is somehow differently. Somehow I just feel like I'm getting more for that. I don't know why.
No, I agreed with you. Jim, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, I want to hear that you're agreeing on something. This is good. 'Cause it's
Do
gotta
I
be,
sound
what, 2 a.m.
disagreeable?
It's what, 2 a.m. your time?
It's 1.
Oh, sorry. No, I want to hear your thoughts, please.
Yeah, no, I agree with Dana that I guess to me, I was sort of taking that and putting it in a different chunk of thinking for the budget process. So because approving $34,000 tonight to increase the fire department budget still doesn't solve the purchasing of the fireworks problem, does it? Like that's, so I guess.
Fire department. So we can't write a check to the fire department like tomorrow?
Yes, we could, if you agree to the additional $19,000 on top of the 15, we could we could write a check to the fire department tomorrow.
But not needed specifically to fireworks?
You can allocate it however you would like to allocate it.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
From this year's budget.
Yes.
Because I think Sally was saying that she didn't think.
No, it is a possibility. If you were to approve the additional 19,000, we would use the already budgeted 15,000 and we could give that to the fireworks or to the
to the fire department, and then they would have the jurisdiction over, or the decision-making ability about how that money gets spent, assuming, of course, that it would be spent on fireworks, but it wouldn't necessarily have to go that way.
Correct.
Okay. I'm out. I need a second. Jim, go ahead.
Knowing that we can increase the fireman's budget, knowing that we can fund this and write a check within the next 24 to 48 hours, knowing that in the future these funds would be discretionary for the fire department, that in years, say there's a fire danger, there's some sort of weather incident that they can't light these off, that the money goes to a fantastic organization of great men, goes back into equipment, goes back into training, goes back into the trucks, goes back to pensions, what have you. I think this is the way to go. I think it's the way to go. And it cuts out the middleman. Like I said, we've done our job. Product increases, product decreases. That's it. We don't give any more. And I think there's no coming back to the well. Can't come back and say, hey, we need more. No, this is it. This is all you got. That is, in my mind, probably the best course of action with this limited time frame that we have. And I wish I was a little bit more passionate, but I tried earlier to feel better, and I'm beat. So I apologize for not being there.
Do we, with it being budget season, is the fire department budget already being increased this year?
We won't know that. They are going to present that to us on Monday.
I think considering this as well, and obviously we can have this conversation on Monday with those folks represented there. But I think if we were to increase this as a line item commitment, again, I'm going to reiterate, I still would expect the level of accountability and transparency that we would expect of all of our services and departments. And again, the discretion to spend it fully on fireworks or not, leaving up to that group, but having the accountability and transparency there. And I just really didn't appreciate the way this whole proposal went down. So if we could have better requests for these kinds of items, that'd be super helpful.
I mean, I came into this totally open-minded, maybe too much so, because I'm still kind of like in a very gray space in terms of what the right thing to do is for the community. I mean, there's plenty of people in the community that wouldn't recognize Silverton without the fireworks. There's a lot of people in the community also that really don't want to see the fireworks. And I really like Dana's point about trying to get out of that decision of fireworks or no fireworks. This year, if we make this decision, even if we push it to the fire department directly, like we're making the decision that we're going to have fireworks next year. Then I think about the master plan that just got adopted tonight and last week for diversifying the economy, creating a sustainable year-round economy, putting more money into our busiest weekend is the opposite of that. I think there's an argument to be made that, you know, putting $34,000 towards community potlucks or the summer sounds would do more to spread, you know, wealth over the whole season. Like, how much capacity do we have on July 4th? Like, if we bring in 15,000 people instead of 9,000 people, how much more money can the town make? How much more capacity do our restaurants have? That's one side of things. Then there's the other side that, like, we definitely talk about infrastructure, emergency services, and making this a great place for the community. Increasing the fire department budget does that. So, like, there's also that argument too.
Well, I would point out, you're not increasing their budget because they're going to spend this money by the 1st of October.
This year. But in the future, or if the, you know, if they buy, as an example, if they spend the money on fireworks this year, and then we have a rain event or a fire ban and they don't get to set them off, the budget's still increased for the following year, presumably by that same amount. They can bank that money next year for something else. There's, you know, if every 2 of 8 years they don't spend the money on fireworks, like, that does increase their budget. Or they may choose in the future that, you know, a 15-minute show is, you know, plenty and it doesn't need to be 22 minutes, and they can decrease the budget and then have extra money for the fire department as well. So by making it discretionary, I think we do something that's aligned with, you know, community goals and vision that we talked about. Like, I think there's equal arguments on both sides. It's like, even the voting was close to 50-50 in the 100 people, the 97 people we did get. This one's pretty tough. If I could do anything and timing wasn't an issue, I would put this on the November ballot. And I'd say, community vote on, you know, do you want fireworks or not? Do you want the town to pay for it, or do you want to come from somewhere else? Like, when a decision is really tough, it goes from staff to us. And when it's impossible, it should go from us to the community. And we kind of tried to do that a little bit with the voting boxes, but with only 97 responses, like, that's not the same as a general election. So I'm still just totally at a loss of what the right thing to do here is, and what portion of the community is going to be the least upset by, you know, making a decision one way or the other, because we're going to get some hate mail later tonight and tomorrow morning, no matter what. So I can't help us here, guys.
And in the majority of the emails I got about whether there was some that people wanted fireworks. There were others that it's not that they didn't want fireworks. They wanted fireworks. They didn't think that the expansion of the show was worth doubling the cost. They wanted fireworks, but they didn't see why why they should pay double. But I can't say that I read very many emails that said, I don't want them at all. I mean, I feel like the majority of people want them. It's just what scale and whether or not they want the town to pay for it.
I'm just going to put a motion out there and I'm going to see what happens, because we're never going to get out. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to increase the SSJFRA's line item budget 10-42200-340 to 34,000 annually, using the 15,000 currently budgeted for fireworks and adding $19,000. So moving the $15,000 budgeted from the fireworks line item to the SSJFRA's line item budget and adding $19,000 to that line item.
With those funds to be
With those funds to be
like issued tomorrow.
Immediately. Is that an acceptable motion? I'm going off script here.
I will second that acceptable motion.
And those funds are to be used by the fire department and however they want.
Annually.
That's the motion.
Sorry?
That's the motion on.
Yeah, I'm just like clarifying, those are not, it's not for anything in particular, it's increase the budget.
Any other questions before we go to roll call?
By stating that it's annually, we're establishing that that's like their new
baseline
budget.
$90,000 budget instead of $56,000 budget.
And we can't make this for 1 year only, so we can sort this fireworks situation out better later.
Good.
I won't vote on this for an annual increase. I'll vote no. If it was for this year, I would vote yes. But I won't vote yes for an annual upping it annually and just.
So from a process perspective, we have a motion and a second on the table. Do the second and the motion want to reconsider based on Tyler's comment, or do we want to move forward with the roll call? I put that back to Jim and Dana.
I do have a question for Tyler. What is an acceptable dollar amount, Tyler?
Oh, no, I think that we can vote for this budget this year because this is what they've asked for fireworks, but I don't think that we need to give the fire department $90,000 a year in perpetuity without any oversight or discretion. So yeah,
so if the math is correct, based on last year's numbers, and it's the same figures that you got in our meeting last Monday, it's a $42,000 budget, $42,000 budget from the fire department. And all we're doing is shifting 15,000 over, increasing it by 19, which is 34,000. That comes out to a $76,000
plus the pension.
Is that correct?
That's correct, but then they have a pension too of $15,000. That's where that actually came from. So their total line item, their total budget is 56,900. And that's 41,900 for the fire department and 15,000 for the pension.
Okay.
And then if you added that 34,000, that'd be 90,900.
Okay.
So I think what Tyler's saying is he'd be comfortable doing this as a one-time thing, and then we can have our budget discussion on Monday and then going forward, but he's not comfortable doing this in perpetuity.
Yeah, because right now we're fixing a short-term problem with a very long-term solution. And I think that we should fix this short-term problem with a short-term solution and then revisit their annual budget in a budget meeting and go through the entire process.
Then how are we not just buying the fireworks?
It's fine. We're just basically, it's the only way we could legally buy fireworks for them right now without an MOU or without anything else.
I guess the difference too is that there's no there's no obligation on the town if no additional fundraising happens. The fire department makes the call to buy the fireworks without knowing, trusting 4th of July Association or their own members to either volunteer or raise the funds, and that the town's exiting that conversation from the board's perspective. So we're not part of it after that. We're providing the budget, and then either, the fireworks happen or they don't, but that's up to the fire department.
I just have to go back to some of the, Dana's lasagna. it's bigger, it's bigger. It's, I mean, sure, we all need more funding. So.
I can appreciate Tyler's point.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Do you guys want to rescind and restate, or do you want to move forward with that roll call?
Because the restatement could be removing the word annually. And it would be the insertion of for the fiscal year of 2022.
Yes.
Jim?
I'm good with that.
I can restate.
Thank you, Tyler, for adding that, and thank you,
So if you-
Shane.
So if you both rescind motion and second, then Dana can go again. So both are rescinded.
What do we get again? I rescind my motion.
Jim?
I rescind my second.
Thank you.
All right, and I will make a motion to increase the SSJFRA's line item budget 10-42200-340 to $34,000 for fiscal year 2022, using the $15,000 currently budgeted in the July 4th fireworks line item and adding $19,000 for fiscal year 2022 to the line item budget 10-42200-340. That acceptable?
Sounds like what you intended.
I second that motion.
Roll call then.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis. Yes. Trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierma.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
This is sleep.
Yes, I'm awake.
Mayor Furman.
This is a no for me, but not because I'm not super supportive of the fire department. I'd like to see this go the right way and have our budget conversation on Monday and increase the budget overall for what you guys need. But I don't think this happened the right way. So I'm going to vote no from a procedural perspective.
Okay, and then the motion passes with 6 yeas and 1 no.
Thank you.
Sessional, thank you. Oh, and I'm so proud of you.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Lighting.
So that was the last item on our agenda. We'll now move to public comment. We'll start with
One more. Don't we have the?
we
I was.
advised.
We revised.
I was.
We'll start with in-person public comment. For anybody who'd like to make a comment. this year.
Good job again.
Thank you. Very good.
Well done. Thanks. So no formal in-person public comment.
We appreciate the feedback.
And so we'll move to the online comments. Please introduce yourself and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Hey, this is Melody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, I'm actually amazed at watching this very difficult conversation unfold. It shows that all of you are working very well together and that you're not necessarily in unison, but you can get there. And you may get hate mail tomorrow, but just tell them I liked it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like we have any other public comment at this time, so we'll go ahead and close public comment. It is 10:25 p.m. and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all, and we'll see you guys on Monday. First.
Yeah.